Okay. Paul, are we good yet? Okay, I'm up live. Can you check and see if Pastor Bobby can be heard? I told you we have to switch between these different channels. Let me know if you can hear him now. Pastor Bobby?
Hello, hello. What a wonderful day this is. Happy Friday, everybody. Happy Friday, happy Friday. What a glorious day this is.
Can you hear him?
Yep, we're good.
Okay, good. Thank you. All right, very, very good. All right, everybody. I want to make sure that you all can hear everything that you need to hear. And hmm. That was a mistake. Done that already. Okay, how much time do we have, Paul?
You start in 10 seconds.
Okay, thank you. Just if you could let me know within 30. Okay, all right, let us get right to it.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world. I am free.
Hey, everybody, welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's a joy to be with you today on Friday, July 21st. Boy, this summer's just breezing by. I'm Santita Jackson, coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, and the Santita Jackson and Friends page. Hey, 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 and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Andre's over there. Please, Deborah, if you can, take a peek at the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And Dave's over there. How you doing? And Shirley from beautiful Philadelphia. Everybody, like and share the show. Like and share the show. What are we talking about today? We're talking about the decision in Florida to teach slavery as something that benefited Black people. At least there we were able to acquire skills. What do you think about that? That is how it's going to be taught. And Black on Black violence is also going to be taught. I don't think they're going to teach that the first time a bomb was dropped in the United States was not by a foreign power, but it was by white people on Black Americans in Tulsa, Oklahoma. That was the first time a bomb was dropped on our soil since we have been a nation. Wow. So let's talk about that. How do you teach slavery, and what does this mean? Indeed, as I shared this information with various people on the panel, they were incredulous. They said, "What? Yeah. Now we will be taught that slavery was a good thing for Black people. They got skills." So you tell me what you think about that. 773-763-9278, 773-763 WCPT. Let's get to some of these headlines, everybody. Republican lawmakers are jeopardizing national security after releasing classified documents that accuse President Joe Biden of conspiring with Ukrainian gas company Burisma, according to retired U.S. Army Lieutenant General Mark Hertling. That came out in the hearing yesterday. The Democratic-led Senate Judiciary Committee voted 11-10 to advance legislation that would require Supreme Court justices to adopt a code of conduct following ethics concerns raised during the High Court's last term. Louisville's new police chief will be the first Black woman to hold the position, sparking hope that the much scrutinized police force could undergo significant reform. UK Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's Conservative Party suffered 2 defeats in a trio of special elections, including a formerly safe Conservative seat in Selby. And the party narrowly held on to a seat in Boris Johnson's former constituency. It's important to understand that only a portion of the British public are able to elect their prime minister. I mean, it's not even 1% of them. It's a system, everybody. Donald Trump's midnight deadline to declare if he would appear before a grand jury convened by special counsel Jack Smith over changes related to election subversion has passed. James Barber, 64, became the first person executed in Alabama after it halted its use of capital punishment last November. His last words were an apology to the family of Dorothy Epps, who he murdered in 2001. And those are some of the headlines. In Chicago, partly cloudy, 77 degrees. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 82 degrees, mostly sunny. Major League Baseball, the Mariners 5. The Twins were shut out. Nothing. White Sox 6. The Mets 2. And the Cardinals 7 and the Cubs 2. In soccer, well, the U.S. women's team are looking today to do something in the World Cup that has never been done before. They're looking for a three-peat, just like the Chicago Bulls of the 90s, right? Well, they're looking to do that. They start things off by facing off against Vietnam. The Philippines were shut out by Switzerland 2-0, and Nigeria and Canada were locked at nothing. It's an exciting time in the WNBA. The Mercury 80, the Sky 62, but the Lynx were triumphant, 73-70 over the Sparks. I am so honored today to have someone who's been with us before, and I'm so glad that he's making the space to be with us on a more regular basis. Someone I've known for a long time. I knew him as Bobby, but now he's Pastor Bobby, Reverend Robert Lewis from the Joy Life Center at 94th and Oakley. There's no reason for you not to go to service on Sundays now, everybody, because their service begins at 12 midnight. So you can hang out all night long on Saturday, but you can come to church on Sunday. I think all the time that your father spent, of course, you're Ramsey Lewis's son, working all night long, but he was also a church guy. He was a church boy.
That's right.
Your grandfather.
Most definitely, yes. You're about to say it. So granddad, when dad was in high school or in his early 20s, he was not allowed to play the clubs on Saturday night and not be in church Sunday morning. There's no excuse. That did not work.
It's so rich. I mean,
and he knew in his spirit where his help came from. Amen.
Amen.
So, right. And so just growing up and understanding the value of God and having a church home and having a space and place to worship on Sunday morning was instilled in us through Dad's work and being with you and your family. That's the power. That's the power, Santita.
It's the power, but I mean, it is rich. I said, wait a minute, 12 o'clock? You learned something. I like that. Because it gives people the space to rest in.
the afternoon.
Yes, 12 at 9401 South Oakley. So everybody get on out there. It's a huge, diverse congregation, and they're growing and growing. And I think you're going to love it because they also have a lot of the great musicians who come on through, because there was a time when we were children and before the Cannonball Adderleys. I mean, the people we grew up with, all of these jazz and musical greats, they've been pushed out of the church because they were singing in the nightclubs and in the secular world. And but that's no longer the case, which is a wonderful thing. But I love the fact that your service is at 12 because it gives people the space to exhale after Saturday night. And the church is changing.
That's right.
Pastor Bobby, it's changing.
And well, it should. The idea that we try to live a separate life, we're not hiding from God, right? And and the music of our lives, Stevie Wonder, Roberta Flack, that's our music. That's our soul music. That's what speaks to our soul. And so those songs should be celebrated, and that life should be celebrated. And so when we're rocking to those songs in our car, it's the same God that's speaking to us on Sunday morning. And so we have to embrace it, right? You know, we can't be double-minded. God sees everything, and so we walk in that strength, we walk in that confidence, and we stand on the shoulders of those giants.
Mm. Amen. And of course, let's not forget Earth, Wind, and Fire, because Maurice White, when I met him, was in your father's band. Hello. So,
Right. In the living room, rehearsing
in the living room. We can't go anywhere and bump into Verdine White and all of Earth, Wind, and Fire. And they're like, wait, dude, I met you when you were a little baby. You don't remember me, but I remember you. I'm like, oh, we were just running through the house. Oh, but see, you and Yusef barely remember that. You and Yusef were the last gasp. Our parents did this no more. The two of
No,
you.
we sit around and listen to y'all have all these conversations about all these wonderful things that happened, and so we live vicariously through you.
But you were there. We just had to carry you on our hips. That's all. And we love it. Oh yeah, there was a time. How tall are you, Pastor Bobby?
6'2".
It seems like you're taller. When I see you, I'm like, wait a minute. I remember picking this boy up. What? Oh.
Yeah.
Oh boy, but you're no longer a boy, you are a man, and I'm so proud of you as you pastor and as you look for ways to serve our people, really coming full circle in the Lewis family and with all of us, because we certainly do need people who are our spiritual, who give us spiritual sustenance. So what is the good news today?
So the good news today, you know, I was listening to the theme song, Save the World, and I just want to remind everybody today that the way you do that is holding on to your dream. Live the dream. What we're going to talk about today. In Genesis 37, Joseph did just that. Despite facing immense challenges, Joseph held on to his dreams with unwavering faith. Your dreams are not just mere thoughts, they are divine sparks that fuel your purpose. Regardless of past setbacks, your dreams are still alive and burning brightly. Embrace them with enthusiasm and unwavering faith. Let your dreams guide you through the ups and the downs, propelling you towards a life filled with purpose. No matter your circumstances, remember that your dreams can transform your reality. Joseph's story allows us that shows us that even in the darkest moments, dreams can be the light that leads to greatness. So go forth with renewed purpose and enthusiasm. Let your dreams fuel your actions and guide your decisions and inspire others. Believe in yourself. Face challenges head on and trust that you are capable of living the dream like never before. You are meant to shine brightly. I want to encourage you today that and impact the world. Embrace your unique gifts and talents and step into the extraordinary life that awaits you. Believe in yourself, your dreams, and nothing will hold you back. It's time to answer the call that your destiny has for you with enthusiasm and determination. So, my friends here on the Santita Jackson Show, live the dream with passion, purpose, and unwavering faith. Let your journey it may not be easy, but it will be worth it. Embrace the adventure, seize the opportunities, and watch all your dreams become a reality. You have what it takes to live the dream.
Amen to that. Amen to that. And you're speaking directly to Lorraine Dunkley Hay this morning. She said, I need good news. Thank you very much. I'm sending special love out to you. Lorraine and I have the same kind of struggle. Her mother has Parkinson's. My father has Parkinson's. And it's a really tough disease, everybody. It's tough. But you can be tougher than the disease. But, you know, it's tough. There's no question about it. And it's, you know, and that's why we have to watch. That's why I try to give you good news, because caregivers, sometimes they give out before the person with the disease does. So you have to watch everybody in the entire ecosystem, because my mother said, I'm as happy as my unhappiest child. And you're as well as the most unwell person in your family. You know, when my father got diagnosed with Parkinson's, just like Lorraine, everybody's got it.
Yeah. And you know, Santita, you have to embrace the assignment that God gives you in the moment.
Say that one more time. What? Wait a minute. What? What's it just say?
You have to embrace the assignment that God gives you in the moment. And so that is living the dream. It is not something that's out there, and it's not something that is always this grandiose piece. Sometimes it's very simple, but embracing the assignment is living the dream. That is it. And holding on to what God gives you in that moment. That's when you allow God to take over. So in the moment, embrace your assignment that God gives you.
Okay. Well, I thank you for that, because I tell you, one of the things that I've learned, I was talking to my father about Parkinson's, because there are days that they get to be very hard for him. He's a former athlete. He was brought to Illinois first in 1959 to play football at the University of Illinois, Big Ten school. He's always been physically gifted and physically able. And I think that's been part of what's propelled him through the world. Tall, big, able to move. And when you absolutely need assistance eating, when you need assistance walking, it's hard. And it can be diminishing at times too. I'm just being honest with you, because this is what you deal with. But I said, Daddy, do you think God is random? And he looked at me and he said, no. I said, do you think God makes mistakes? He said, no. I said, okay, so here we are.
Exactly. And as we see Reverend going around even today, and with the challenges that are there, when I look into his eyes, I see the love, I see the passion, I see the fire. And so he's still that example of holding on to the dream, no matter what your circumstance. His voice, even though it's not as clear at times, it is still strong. And that's what we have to be reminded of. You can't let the circumstances are temporary. Your assignment is forever.
Amen to that.
Circumstances it's the truth.
Amen to that.
So you can't get distracted. Don't get distracted by the circumstance. Don't get distracted by the circumstance, because your assignment still rings true.
Absolutely.
Right?
Look, absolutely. It's just like what you look like on the outside. No, your soul has another look. Okay? So you better attend to that, okay? I mean, that's what the picture of Dorian Gray teaches us, that wonderful movie. You can be all pretty on the outside and you can be wicked on the inside, and you're ugly. Make sure that your soul is right. Keep that beautiful. Keep a beautiful spirit.
Right.
Keep that. That's important. That's important. How can we worship with you? And do you have any other services throughout the week?
So yes, we have on YouTube. We're at Joy Life Center on YouTube and Joy Life Center on Facebook. So please join us. Subscribe to YouTube and like us, and like our Facebook page, and join us there. During the week, we have virtual Bible study on Tuesday at noon on Facebook and YouTube. And on Thursday, we have a prayer service on Facebook and YouTube. On Tuesday night, we have our men's group, and Wednesday night, we have our women's group. That's on Zoom. It's virtual right now. But you can get that Zoom link if you email Joy Life MBR, M as in Mary, B as in Bobby, R as in Robert, joylifembr@gmail.com. And we'll send you the link, and you can join the men's group and the women's group. Soon, we'll be going live with those at our location at 9401 South Oakley. And so we have that 12 o'clock service that we'd love to see you at. We'd love to have you come out and join us and worship with us at noon on Sundays at Joy Life Center.
After you've had your fun on Saturday night, get on over to the church.
You better tell the truth.
That is what life in the nightclubs and having to work at night have taught Bobby and I. You're gonna get up and go to church on Sunday. You're gonna do that.
That's right.
Well, Bobby, what we have coming up, we're looking at U.S. slavery. And of course, we're both descended from Black people who were enslaved in this country. But how we teach it it's now become controversial. I guess Florida Governor Ron DeSantis would not allow Roots to be on television. I mean, the original Roots, the one that was guided by Alex Haley, who wrote it. Because guess what? Middle school students in Florida will soon be taught that slavery gave Black people, quote, a personal benefit, close quote, because they, quote, developed skills. In other words, slavery was good for us because we learned certain skills that you could translate into the rest of the world once slavery was over. So, what do you think about that? I want you to call me at 773 763 9278. 773 763 9278. Some Black people benefited from slavery because they were taught useful skills. Call me at 773. Yes, Lorraine. What you say? Lord have mercy. What? Yeah. These kids are going to be taught that. They're going to be taught that. And you need to be aware of that. And this is in the wake of what's happening with affirmative action, it being undercut, and the elimination of race sensitive scholarships. What's going to happen to HBCUs? Will they be turned into PWIs, predominantly white institutions? What's happening here? What's happening here? And what do you think about slavery? I mean, what's the real deal? Bobby, I can tell you, my father's mother refused to even, you could not utter Roots around her. She said, do you know why we look as we do? Do you think I want to be reminded of that? She said, don't you ever mention that to me. I don't want to hear it. It's not that she didn't love Alex Haley, but guess what? That was too painful. It was too close.
Too painful, right? Too painful, too close. The wounds were still fresh.
Still fresh.
Right?
Yeah.
Yep. I'm gonna tell you, Santita, Dad, before he passed, we were talking, and he was telling me about going down to Georgia to see his grandfather. And one time he went down there with his dad, and someone came up to his father. A white man came up to his father and called him the N-word. Mm-hmm. And he said that's the first time that he saw his father lose, like he cowered because he knew that he could not respond back the way that he wanted to. And it made him cry. And it made him cry then, and it made him cry at 87 years old. And so the pain and the wounds are still fresh, even within us, because we're still challenged and faced with these issues of race in our society. And so that is part of us, and then part of the fight that your father has been doing so greatly and so proudly, that I am a part of that fight as well.
Well, you know, I mean, the thing is, it's racism. The problem is racism.
Well, that's right.
You know, I'm not a problem.
That's right. It's great.
And I'm not different.
It's racism, right? Racism and all the other isms that we got out there.
There you go. So let's talk about this, everybody. Yeah. What about slavery? How should it be taught? Call me at 773-763-9278. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Pastor Bobby, Joy Life Center, 94th and Oakley, 12 o'clock on Sundays. Go on and be there. And be right here. Call me at 773-763, and let's talk about how slavery should be taught, how it's going to be taught in Florida. Back in just a moment. Thank you, sweetie.
Oh, that was wonderful.
Oh, you know, we got some stuff for you.
Thank you so much.
Oh, hey, you are more than welcome. Thank you.
We're really excited about this concert that we're going to have. We got a couple ideas, but I want to just make sure that we check all the boxes for you as we put this together.
Okay, well, I'm excited. You know, I think it can be, you know, I think it's time. And you all pulled me back.
Dr. Reed is on the line.
Thank you so much. You know what? Let's just stay with We Can Change the World for the show, for the music, okay?
I only have the 39-second intro.
For We Can Change the World?
Yeah, I don't have the full song.
Well, I just didn't want to use the Power of Hope.
I have Power of Hope, Healing, and Victorious for the long outros.
That's all you have? You don't have to change the world?
Yep, I don't have Change the World.
Okay. Plus, there's another song I'm going to put in there anyway. Okay. Thank you. Hey, Marnie.
Hey, Santita, how are you doing?
I am doing well. Thank you. Okay.
We're having rain. The rain is here.
Well, honey, we have that right now, right here, right now. You know what? Is your window up?
Yes, my window is up. My window is up.
Okay.
I might end up having to put my earphones in.
I think you are. Let's try it. Let's try it now because I want to make sure. I want to hear what the sound is.
Dr. Bear's on the line.
Okay, thank you. Dr. Bear?
Hi, how are you? Good
How are
morning.
you?
Good, thank you.
Great hearing your voice.
Thank you, likewise.
And I'm so glad that you joined in on this madness.
Can you hear me?
Yes, that's much better.
I can't hear me.
Okay,
Yes.
good.
That is much better. That's much better.
Santita, I'm gonna
Mr. McKee's on the line.
I'm gonna jump. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
And
sweetie.
we'll talk soon.
And much love to you and your family
All right.
today, okay?
All right, you as well. God bless you.
All right, sweetie. Love you much.
All right, love you too. Bye bye.
Dwight McKee?
This is me.
Okay, I've got Dr. Michael Bayer on with us and Dr. Marnie Reeves.
Good morning,
Hey, Sister
Dwight.
Marnie, how you doing? How you doing, Sister Marnie?
I'm doing great. Can you hear me?
I can hear you. I certainly can.
Okay, great.
I heard you on the other day. I was glad to hear you. I hadn't heard.
Dr. Urie's on.
And yeah,
Thank you.
oh man, I've been so busy.
You've been at your
doing so many
conference, right?
things. Yes, I had the conference, the NEA conference. We had our ratification vote before that. I had OSHA training, and I just finished up arbitration training.
You gonna be arbitrator?
I'm going to be on the grievance. Yeah, no, I'm going to be on the grievance committee for the union. Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay. That's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Hi, good morning. This is like fire. I'm sorry, I got cut off real quick. Who was your other guest?
Oh, Dr. Bayer, this is, we've got Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, who's the senior pastor of Douglas Memorial
Stand by,
Community
coming
Church in Baltimore. We got Dwight McKee. I'm going to introduce you all on the air.
No worries. Thank you.
We can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. I'm Santita Jackson. I want you to meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. Everybody, please, if you want to be my friend on Facebook, that is where you have to go. Please go there. Please meet me on Twitter at Santita J, and on my YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. In fact, please get on over there today and meet Ashley King down there in Memphis, Barbara Bacon, Joyce Anderson. Try and get on over there. Lorraine Dunkley, hey, if you can, please get on over there. Because, in fact, the people from Facebook asked me to ask you to go on over to the YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. And we got a discussion today. What about slavery? It's something that it's still something we don't want to talk about in the United States. We will talk about all manner of atrocities that have happened all around the world, but in the United States, we still cannot really wrap our arms around it. And I think it's because it was so heinous and because it happened on this soil. We can't wrap our arms around what happened with indigenous people, something that people all around the world are calling a genocide. The transatlantic slave trade has been defined as suicide. Not suicide, as a homicide, as a genocide of a whole people. That's really what genocide is. homicide of whole people. So let's talk about this today because now we're looking at teaching it, but Ron DeSantis and certain folks think that slavery needs to be taught in a certain way. Not as the heinous institution that it was, making people, human beings, chattel and treating them as you wish, raping them, forcing them to have your children, raping men in the middle of a plantation. All of these things happen and more, subjugating them for hundreds of years with slavery and creating Jim Crow, and then trying to deny them citizenship, and on and on and on it has gone. Well, what they want to say is that slavery wasn't so bad. Indeed, slavery was a training program. In this training program, African Americans were able to get skills, acquire skills that made them marketable once slavery was over. So I want you to call me and let me know what you think. Do you think that that's what this was? Educators, historians, and civil rights leaders, according to this Common Dreams report, were among those who condemned Florida's new K through 12 history curriculum. They're calling it a big step backwards. Everybody, they're being told that Jim Crow era atrocities, including um, these massacres in Florida, among which we saw the Rosewood movie, and lynchings. They say students should also be taught about the facts of violence perpetrated against African Americans by African Americans and by African Americans. So, what do you think about this? Call me at 773-763-9278. Got a tremendous panel to talk about this today. And we've got, of course, Dwight McKee, brilliant sociologist, and Reverend Dr. Todd Geary, Esquire, a lawyer from Rainbow Push nationally, but he's also the senior pastor of the Douglas Memorial Community Church in Baltimore, Maryland, but he's part of the leadership structure at Rainbow Push nationally. We have got, oh my goodness, this is just, words fail me, Dr. Michael Byer, who is an education consultant, someone who's held in such high regard in Chicago and in the United States in education. But let me let you start things off, Dr. Marnie Reeves. Of course, you are United Federation of Teachers, American Federation of Teachers. You were at the City University of New York. You teach there. You also teach in the New York public schools. So what do you make of this new K through 12 curriculum?
You know, as someone who teaches Black literature in the classroom, I remember when they started to attempt in Florida to change the curriculum for the AP African American literature courses, African American history courses. And I realized something, that when we have people who write our own history for us, they can change and say anything that they want to do. The fact that you want Black and brown children to believe that their ancestors put themselves in the position that they were in after being dragged from, their origins to this foreign country that was stolen from the indigenous people is just atrocious. The fact that you want Black and brown children to believe that the position that they're in this country, the subjugation that the marginalization that they still exist under, is due to their own doing, due to their ancestors' doing, is atrocious. And it literally lets us know that America is not for Black people. I know in my literature course, I have a lesson that I teach to my students where I say to them, let's look at the map and see realistically where we're from and how we allow ourselves to be called. We consider ourselves as Black people to be African Americans, but America was never for us. So we're basically giving ourselves a title of being of America when America keeps telling us we don't belong here. Okay. the fact that we want our Black children and our brown children who continue to be marginalized when we send them through the school to prison pipeline to believe that when they get put in these prisons, it is because of what it is that their ancestors did prior to them getting into the schools is atrocious. We have to learn, if we have not yet learned, that we need to build our own schools to educate our own children so that they understand our history. We should never allow anyone to deny us our own history. We have to make sure that we take charge and control of that narrative. The narrative should never come from those who never understood us and intended to subjugate us. The narrative should always come from us. And at this point in time, when we have people like DeSantis, who's running for president, wanting to put the narrative out, that we are the reason why we're here because of this free training program that they offered. So what did they do? They stood on the shores of Africa and yelled out, "Come one, come all, we're about to teach you something you didn't know." What were we doing before the ships came? Are you saying that we did not live anywhere? Are you saying that we did not eat? Are you saying that we did not wear clothing? Are you saying that we are not the builders and architects of everything that exists on this planet that was never given to us by God? He gave us. He gave us the knowledge to build buildings. He gave us the knowledge to build the very ships that those explorers, quote unquote, used to take us from our country of origin, our motherland, to bring us here to subjugate us. So to hear DeSantis and people like him, DeSantis and company, as one of the articles I read said, say that they were bringing us here because, we wanted to be a part of a free training program is disgusting. There's no other way of putting it but just saying that it is disgusting.
Well, Dr. Byer, you are an educator.
Yeah.
What do you make of this, and what do you do? If you're the principal of a school, and because history is not supposed, you're not supposed to. It's not lies. Oftentimes we traffic in lies, but it's not what it's supposed to be. It's a training program. Slavery, really?
Yeah, my view on this is that there are three issues with this new standard in Florida, which is one, it's factually untrue. As the prior guest mentioned, that Africans who were enslaved brought skills. In fact, there's ample evidence that they targeted certain areas in Africa because the people had skills that were brought to America. In fact, it's pretty well documented that many of the early farming techniques came from Africa and enslaved people. Two, the other problem with this standard is that it encourages this notion that enslaved Africans were subhuman. And three, possibly the most dangerous part, is that this sets up teachers and educators in Florida to be fired for not following the standard, which they're already doing with the so-called Don't Say Gay law. There are teachers being fired for showing Disney movies. There was a principal who was fired for showing the David statue from Italy. And so a standard like this is not only historically inaccurate and encourages racist notions of Africa, and erases the long history of civilizations in Africa, kingdoms and empires that originated science and arts that were brought to America. It sets up a lot of threats to educators in Florida.
So, Reverend Dr. Yeary, your thoughts?
Let me first say good morning. I want to make sure that I mind my manners to you and your colleagues.
Are you about to jump out of your manners now? Is that what you're about to
I'm just, it's a disclaimer. How much delay do we have? Because there may be a need for use of the button this morning.
Okay.
Let me also kind of frame it in this way. I spent 10 years as the assistant and associate director of the Center for Black Studies at Northern Illinois University. Part of my responsibility was to oversee the teaching and the expanding of a curriculum that focused on historically relevant courses for undergraduate students at a predominantly white institution. Those courses would often rely upon resources that historically had been overlooked in the academy, written by Black people on issues and subject matter concerning Black people, because the system controlled by white people consistently overlooked and intentionally ignored the relevance and the contribution of Black people to the making of America and the global impact. So let me start there. To somehow say that human trafficking is a social uplift program for the trafficked, or that a forced labor program is somehow an apprenticeship program that leads to some sort of certification of being a journeyman and how to pick somebody else's cotton, is the absolute practical definition of what I would just call bullshiggity.
No. Okay.
I think that's about as.
No, I got you. Because also, I mean, I really have a panel of educators this morning, and of course, we've got Dr. D. Dwight McKee. In addition to being a social scientist, he's also the dean of students at the Mafa Redemption Project at New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. But he helps educate a generation of people through the youth division at Operation Breadbasket and Operation Push, and we all still call upon him today. What do you make of this, Dwight McKee? I mean, it's just okay, Dwight.
Well, good morning, everybody. You know, when you think about it, there's very little that can be said about slavery that can be said about the Holocaust. It is the people in those work camps had jobs too. They worked for corporations, for German corporations, before they were gassed. But if you were to say that the Holocaust, that there were happy Holocaust survivors who played the harmonica and the banjo, the Jewish community would run you out of town. If you don't believe me, ask Kanye. The reason these people say these things is because there are no consequences. We have to build in consequences to this crowd. We should be boycotting Florida. We should be boycotting the Koch brothers. We need to set up about 4 or 5 major examples of them who are in power in that party and run them out of business and make it very uncomfortable for them to take these positions. They will then put the pressure on guys like DeSantis, from which who get their money from whom they get their money, and they will right that wrong in our behalf. But they say these things because they say it with impunity. And we kind of watch them and scratch our head and get upset and whine. No, that's not the approach we need to make. What we need to do is what we did in the old days, is figure about 4 major companies that are funding these parties and these candidates, put them out of business. You know, we have to turn them into Jewel-T, A&P. Do you remember A&P?
Oh, and a memory it is, because we put them out of business.
When was the last time you've seen an A&P? And it is because we made sure that they paid a price for racism. And there has to be a price paid for racism. That's what our next conversation should be about, in my opinion, is what example are we going to make? Who's going to be the example? This thing has to stop.
Well, call me at 773-763-9278, 763-WCPT. Dr. Byer, I mean, what is a teacher to do? How do you teach this?
Yeah, that's a very good question. And, of course, that depends on the age. Middle school and even late elementary and up, there's ways to teach around it, which is you have an open project. You say, hey, we're gonna do a research project of your choice, and then you hope or you encourage kids to research topics that disprove the standard, right? And then you have the kids present to the class. So, you're not teaching it. The kids are. It's their research. Can't fire the kids, I hope. But for early elementary students, and I know standards written based on the age, but overall the whole thing's problematic, and I think it just points to the fact that, and you said it earlier, one of you guys said it earlier, which is, who writes the history? Who writes the standards? In this case, you have politicians, you have policymakers. And I know there was at least a couple educators on the board that approved the standard, but overall, this is just another example of policymakers who have never worked in a school writing policy for educators. And you don't see this happening in so many other professions. You don't see non-lawyers writing, standards for lawyers, and you don't see people who are not medical professionals telling doctors and nurses how to do the job. You see it routinely, consistently in education, and that's part of the problem. Is that schools and education and classrooms are the battleground, and it has been for well over a century. It's the battleground of our cultural wars, and it's not new. It's just increased, and it's the first place people go to. So as far as, how do you teach it, there's plenty of ways to teach around it. And the fact is that this has been happening even with laws and standards and policies that encourage teaching Black history. I've had, educators who did not really teach Black history with as much authenticity as they should. So there's ways to get around it, but unfortunately, we shouldn't be having this conversation. And, teacher unions and teachers should be part of the solution to stand up and say no and just refuse and pay a consequence. Teachers should leave, and teachers should refuse to work in Florida and let their schools, suffer, unfortunately, but that's what they're asking for.
Well, the danger is, Santita, if I can say this real quickly, the danger is the policy that grows out of this mentality is that it becomes a precursor and a pretext to then impose policies like they impose in the ceiling fight. Whereas now, in order for you to get your checks, then you are obligated to serve certain jobs, and then they feel like they're doing you a favor when they force you to take certain jobs. It becomes a de facto slavery. It justifies them putting you in prison because you learn a skill in jail that you don't learn in school. The real danger is they use it as a pretext to create policies to take us back into the slavery we've been trying to get out of.
Well, Dr. Reeves just left Dr. Byer these national teachers conventions, and she is she is a national representative coming out of the New York public schools. I mean, what's going to happen now? Will teachers be fired? Will unions fight for them? I mean, where does the union movement figure into all of this? What's next?
So, Santita, I think one of the things that, I noticed even at the convention is that, and I think it needs to be made clear and understood, we have teachers, Dr. Byer mentioned this, who are very uncomfortable even teaching Black history in a classroom. They're very uncomfortable teaching truth in a classroom. They will regurgitate any curriculum that is handed to them by a corporation rather than educate themselves on what it is they're supposed to be in the classroom teaching. So you will find that you might have some teachers who will teach this. Dr. Byer mentioned giving the children a project. That way you specifically or directly will not teach it. However, that becomes hard as well, because when you're teaching elementary school kids how to do projects, you have to guide them on how to do that project well. When you're talking about asking teachers to teach something that they're not comfortable with. A lot of times they might teach it, but they will do a poor job of it. So here it is. You have DeSantis in a state where a lot of the teachers there are very young. They're, with the Janus ruling, for example, we've seen where a lot of younger teachers are not very much into unions because they don't understand unions. So you might have some teachers who will say, okay, I'm going to teach this regardless of how comfortable they are with it, while you will have those who are true activists who will say, I will absolutely not use this in my class. The good thing about this, in some ways, in some sense, even though there's really nothing good about all of this that's been proposed by him, is that there is really, truly, at the end of the day, no standardized testing in Florida that's directly related to this subject matter. So, with the AP exams, yes, you see the AP exam might have that on the test, but in this case, this proposal might not appear on a standardized test for that state.
But you know what the danger is to me?
The issue is
indoctrination, right?
But the real goal is to indoctrinate.
I got 30
because
seconds.
This is what happens. This is what happens when you're saying to Black and brown parents that this is what we're going to teach. They now have an option of removing their children from that very school system. And you know, and I know, that they don't want to educate Black and brown children in America. So Ron DeSantis is setting the stage for Black and brown parents to say, you know what? I'm not going to put up with this. I'm not in any way or form going to have my child in a school that's going to teach this. Now, the question then becomes, where am I going to put my child? Am I going to educate my child at home, or are we going to now build our own schools?
Well, you know
because while this is a bad thing, the positive thing is that we can build our own school. We can build our own schools and teach our own children.
White parents need to understand this is coming for them too. Poor whites.
Yes.
Because the system was not built for anyone but very wealthy white men. You need to be clear on that. But you need to understand what's going on here. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. I want you to call me at 773-763-9278, 773-763-WCPT. What about the new curriculum in Florida, K through 12? They will be taught, the children will be taught that slavery was good for Black people. They got skills there. What say you? 773-763-9278. You have a lot of opinions on this, on YouTube and on Facebook. I want to hear your voices today. Call me at 773-763-9278. Meet me on Twitter at Santita J. Meet me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel and Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show. Just a few minutes. Dr. Byer?
Yes, ma'am.
Are you able to stay, or do you have to go?
No, I can stay. Thank you.
Okay, there. Marnie, can you stay, or do you have to go?
I can stay for a few minutes.
A few minutes? Well, okay. What I'll do is give you.
I want to hear Dwight.
Okay. Well, what I want to do, because what I will do is switch you out. But I want you, because no, because I know I let Dr. Reeves know like minutes before. I forgot to press send. I put her in the run sheet without letting her know. I'm sorry. No, I'm not. He said, "Oh yeah, I'm in the run sheet." Yes, you are. So after Dwight says,
Dr. Arnold is on the line.
Okay, we got Dr. Damon Arnold, former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health. And I want him to be a part of this discussion. I'm so excited about that, and Attorney Mark Fancher. But what I'm going to do is give you a chance, Marnie, Dr. Reeves, to make your closing statement. Okay, Dr. Reeves.
I'm here.
Oh, okay.
Attorney Fancher's on the line.
Okay, you can make your closing statement at the top of the hour. Okay.
Okay, no problem.
I'm sorry I didn't give you enough time. Maybe you could have made some more room in your day.
No, it's fine. I actually can stay on until I
Okay.
get to the tunnel.
Okay, well, no, I mean, how many
That's
minutes?
another half an hour.
No, okay, no, just let me.
That's another half an hour.
Okay, let me know. Thank you, because I gotta
No problem. No problem.
let all of you in.
No problem.
Okay, great. All right. And
Santita, also, I have a couple of Florida educators I was contacting last night. It was kind of late. They're both indisposed today, this morning, so they couldn't come on. But I'll put you in contact if you continue this this topic again.
we're gonna do this,
one
I think,
pretty-
on Sunday on Keep Up Alive.
Okay, great. So, all right. What time is that?
That is from 7 to 9, which is 8 to 10 their time, Eastern Standard Time, AM.
Okay, great. I'll see if they're available, and I'll put you in touch if they are.
Fantastic. But let me know if you can be a part of it as well.
Will do.
Okay, that would be great. Marnie?
I'm here. I'm
Dr.
just
Reese-
muted.
Okay, no, make sure, just try to stay off mute, because when I hear the delay, I have to move on. Remember, it's radio. But do me this favor.
Okay, no problem.
We need to talk today, because what I want to go over the idea that we were discussing.
Yes, for sure.
Because I want to have
For
few
sure.
days of lead. I want to have like at least a few days of lead time to do it.
Okay, no problem.
Okay.
No problem. We could do that.
Okay, let me see.
I got you.
Okay, thank you. Let me see this. Okay. Okay, you all can talk amongst yourselves. Honey, I'm doing more than one thing on the show. And thank you for holding back on the, was it bullshiggity? Is that it?
Bullshiggity. I'm gonna stay. I'm gonna stay in timeout over here, but that's some bullshiggity.
Oh my gosh.
That's a drop the mic comment. That's a drop the mic comment.
No, that was almost drop me off the air comment. But I'm not mad. But I loved it. That was good.
Good morning, Santita. This is Dr. Arnold.
Dr. Arnold. Oh, everyone, we love Dr. Arnold. Oh, and don't you say bullshiggity. Please don't, because you're going to mess it up. Everyone, this is Dr. Arnold, my fellow bison. I'm so glad I got a representative from Howard University up here. But of course, he's the former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health, Dwight McKee. I know you know Dr. Arnold.
How you doing, Doc?
Hey, how are you doing? Great. Great, Dwight.
Oh, okay, now you've created something, Todd. Everybody's trying to figure out how to spell it. But I think that Lorraine got it. And they're going to start using it.
Look, you want me to spell it? B-U-L-L. Shall I keep going?
No. No. Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
I was thinking maybe that's what.
Oh man, I'm leave you to the teachers here. And so, boy,
Teachers say far worse things in the teachers' lounge.
Now you know what?
I'm gonna add that word, Santita, to my vocabulary when I'm teaching Souls of Black folk.
Lord have mercy.
That's what I'm gonna do.
Oh.
Thanks for that addition, Dr. Yuri.
Like, really?
You're quite welcome. I'm happy to spell it for someone at any time. I'll do it.
Thank you. That's enough.
All right.
Is Mark Fancher there? Someone who?
Yes. Good morning.
Poor Mark. He said, "Wait a minute. Yes, I'm here. I don't know what you all are doing here."
I know. I'm covering up my naive, innocent, virgin ears.
Oh
for all this language.
I'm sure. I'm sitting here trying to stay on the air. Oh Lord. On the air. Do that. Okay.
1 minute.
Keep on talking, but I certainly have enjoyed you all this morning. When I called Dr. Arnold with this, had a lovely lunch with him yesterday. It was so wonderful being with you. He said, "What?"
Yes.
What? I said, "Oh yeah." Now, these folks are not kidding. But he's got something up his sleeve that he's going to share with you all. We just love you, Dr. Arnold. I love all of you. I'm so glad that you're here. But stand by. Okay, so let's get right to it. And I just sent you a text. Paul Chivari. Okay, I'm trying to get some of these other. Okay. Okay. All right. Okay, everybody.
Stand by.
We can change the world, change the world, change the world. Yes, we can. We can change the world, we can change the world, change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love, it's not too late. Gotta save the children, we can't wait. Let's change the world.
Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Santita Jackson Show. It's Friday, July 21st, 2021. I'm coming to you from WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, and AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. But meet my morning stars on the Santita Jackson and Friends page on Facebook. That is the only page where I can interact everybody. And so I know many of you, I still have thousands, quite frankly, of requests on Santita Jackson, and I wish I could fulfill them, but they will not let me without kicking other people off, which is what they do routinely. So please spread the word, if you will. Spread the word and let people know that I can accept friends, but only on Santita Jackson and Friends. So meet me over there. Santita Jackson and Friends on Facebook and on Twitter at Santita J. Please meet me over there and meet me on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. We're talking about slavery in Florida, K through 12. You will be taught, all middle school children who are in the public school system will be taught that slavery was good for Black people because it gave them skills. And they'll be taught things along those lines. Want to know what your thinking is? Call me at 773-763-9278. 773-763-9278. Some people are suggesting that we need to have a boycott. Robert Williams said should have boycotted Florida before Ron DeSantis got the governor's slot. People are wondering, wow, what did happen to A&P? Well, Dwight McKee told you what happened to A&P. We boycotted them out of existence, not because of race, but because of racism. Want to know what your thoughts are? 773-763-9278, 773-763-WC. PT. Let's get to some of the headlines so we can get to the rest of the show. More than 100 million people are under heat alerts across the southern United States today as state and federal programs attempt to help people cool down, everybody. Abnormally high temperatures from coast to coast are also expected this weekend, above 100 degrees. That's almost a third of America, everybody. What do you think about that? Another strike was averted, a Broadway strike. Yes, Broadway, the great right way, was averted yesterday after a deal was reached by the union representing 1,500 stagehands and other theater workers. A strike would have shut down shows in New York City and touring shows all across the United States. The walkout threat comes as 160,000 actors in Hollywood and all across the country who are represented by SAG and AFTRA, they're on strike, as well as 11,000 members of the Writers Guild of America. They're on strike. And beyond the world of entertainment, there are many other unionized workers threatening to go on strike. More than 340,000 union members at UPS will go on strike against the package delivery giant on August 1st if there is no deal on a new contract. That would be disastrous, everybody. In Chicago, we have a high of 77 degrees, partly cloudy. Minneapolis, St. Paul, 82 degrees, mostly sunny. The World Cup, the Women's World Cup in soccer, well, the American women's team is seeking to do something that no woman's team, no man's team has ever done, have a three-peat, just like our Bulls in the 90s. So we're pulling for them. They play Vietnam today. Go, Team USA, go. Philippines and Switzerland. Well, Switzerland shut out the Philippines 2-0, and Nigeria and Canada were locked in a shutout, 0-0. The Mariners in Major League Baseball shut out the Twins 5-0. The White Sox 6-2 over the Mets. the Cardinals 72 over the Cubs. In the WNBA, the Mercury 80, the Sky 62, and the Lynx 73, and the Sparks 70. Those are just some of the headlines on the Santita Jackson Show. You know, we're looking for financial freedom here, everybody, and I want you to at least have the opportunity to look at a house. We had David Hochberg on with us yesterday from Team Hochberg, helping you to understand that, you know what, you can build your credit. He has a credit card for you, a secured credit card that will enable you to build your credit in months. You can go from the 500s to the 600s, from the 600s to the 7s, from the 7s to the 800s. That's right. It will change your financial life, everybody. But if you're a first-time home buyer, which means you will not have owned a home over the past 3 years, not 4 years ago, but over the past 3 years, you have an opportunity to buy a home, and I want you to call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. They're your trusted local lender. First-time buyers only made up 26% of the market last year. That is down from 34% and numbers that were significantly higher in prior years. That has alarmed Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, as well it should, because the cornerstone of an American's wealth is what? Home ownership. And so they want to turn these numbers around by incentivizing first-time home buyers by offering substantially lower mortgage rates. Now, this program could change at any time because they could lift the rates. But while they are low, call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID, 855-56-DAVID. If your total household income is below $105,700, that's just in the Chicago area, call Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID. You might have an opportunity to create some multi-generational wealth by becoming a home owner. If you have not owned a home during the past 3 years, we're not making this up, everybody. This program could change. So please go on and do what you need to do and really call them. You can go to 56david.com. I think that's great. But there's nothing like calling them and telling your story. Okay, so call them. They're great people over at Team Hochberg at 855-56-DAVID. Let's talk about slavery, everybody. We've had Dr. Michael Bayer. I always do that to him. I don't know why. But he's an education consultant, someone who's held in tremendous regard, a real fighter for our students here in Chicago and around the country. Dr. Marnie Reeves from the City University of New York and from New York Public Schools. Yes, she teaches in both places. She's a professor over here, a teacher over there. She's from the United Federation of Teachers and the American Federation of Teachers. She's a national representative there, and she's an arbitrator. She does it all. And of course, we have Dwight McKee, noted social scientist and educator. Of course, he's the dean of students at the Moffat Redemption Project at New Mount Pilgrim Missionary Baptist Church. They're doing great work with our students. Reverend Dr. Todd Yeary Esquire, of course, part of the leadership of the National Rainbow Push Coalition. He's also the senior pastor at the Douglas Memorial Community Church, and he's a great linguist, giving us new words today and every single day. But you know what? Before I pivot back to the panel who have been here, let me speak to Mark Fancher, attorney Mark Fancher, and Dr. Damon Arnold. Let me start with you, Dr. Arnold. Howardite. That's right. HU. You know I love it. But talk to me. You're a veteran. You're the former head of the Illinois Department of Public Health. You've been very concerned about affirmative action because you said, wait a minute, you have hired people. You've been hired. You've gone to school. You've helped get people into school. You're like, this is going to be devastating. We're going to be talking with you about that in the coming weeks. But what do you make of this whole rewrite, if you will, of slavery, that this was actually to Blacks' advantage to get these skills? Although Dr. Michael Bayer said, wait a minute, it has been documented because he's a teacher. He looks for the truth. He said, no, Blacks were brought here because they had skills that were needed here. Dr. Arnold.
Yes. Yeah, I think this is, other than saying that it's psychotic behavior, and I'd rather refer such cases to my colleagues who are in psychiatry for deep medication and therapy. These people who are writing these rules and regulations should not be in elected positions and should not be serving in positions of power over how we are formulating how our society should operate. They should be extricated from it. Their degrees should be stripped from them if they have doctorate degrees, because they are absolutely incorrect in their assumptions and their conclusions. That's the first thing. The second thing is that to assume that slavery, with all the scars and the wounds and the lynching and the backlashing and the disintegration of family structures, which they say they support family structures, slavery destroyed those. It turned us into a nation where we had to have people like Jesse Jackson come forward who was strong enough to voice his opinion when other people stood beside. I was a combat veteran, so when I got back to the United States from doing 2 combat tour duties, one with UH-60 Black Hawk helicopters, the other with mechanized infantry with the Stryker Brigade, as we were rolling through towns to defend a flag that was not our flag when we got back home. We were being mistreated as African American veterans. Many of them have taken 26 years from Vietnam to get their service connection for a lot of the disabilities and things they were exposed to overseas. So when I see that and I hear people like this in Florida, and first of all, I want to rename the Florida educational system. So I want first Florida Board of Miseducation and Ignorance. That's what their title should be. I read through the documents that they actually constructed about what we should be teaching in African American history, and I was astounded. They listed mostly right-wing leaning people who were sympathetic to their ideals, which they twist because those people probably would not agree with their views of them, the way they're presenting them. And they left out people like Frederick Douglass, people who were champions, Martin Luther King, your father, Jesse Jackson. They left people out of the history of social change. And Santita, yesterday we were talking about things like, and I'll just mention this very briefly because I know you have other things to talk about. But at one point, the CDC asked me to give a talk, and 300 people showed up here in Chicago, and I said, "So what do you want me to talk to? And what's the topic do you want?" And they said, "Why don't you talk about equity?" Which is not a surprise because they don't think we can talk about anything else but equity, right? So I said, to start everything off, I'm going to ask you a question. What do you know about Albert Einstein? And they said, well, equals MC squared, Manhattan Project, escape from Nazi Germany, greatest scientist and physicist ever. And I said, what else do you know about him? Oh, just a brilliant mind, the person that I would think is the greatest scientist ever in history. I said, okay, do you know that Albert Einstein was a co-chair with Paul Robeson in the anti-lynching movement? Do you know that Albert Einstein wrote a letter stopping W.E. Du Bois from being in prison? Do you know that he taught inner-city African-American students on Witherspoon Street, 5 blocks from Princeton University? He was a bench scientist, never taught an undergraduate or graduate student. He went to Lincoln College. He went to places where he was reaching out to African-Americans. He used to sit on the sidewalk, on the stoops of African-Americans' homes on a regular basis, smoking his pipe and talking to them about life, visited jazz clubs, loved our culture, thought that we were actually being done wrong by racism in this country. So if they didn't know that, then they have been miseducated as people who are leading the institutions of the CDC and Health and Human Services in this country. If you can't understand and you've been miseducated about one of your central figures in science, before I talk about equity, you have to re-educate yourself and look at the educational system that's been lying to you about who we are throughout your entire life. So we have to get to the point where we understand that these people who are coming about slaves developing skills, they built this country. They didn't develop skills. They actually used skills that you did not use to build this country. So maybe you should be the ones learning some skills and not the skill of stealing. Because that's what you did with the land from the native Indians, the people who are indigenous people. We stole our identity. You stole our material goods. Everything that you touch, you have been stealing from. He's been stealing our dignity, our freedom. So let's talk about real education. And you need to start with that Board of Education in Florida, because you have been miseducated and you are ignorant.
Dr. Damon Arnold, everybody, PhD. He's got a whole lot of learning behind those letters. And former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health, Attorney Mark Fancher. What say you? Dr. Arnold said a lot.
Yes, he did, and I think that's at the heart of what this is all about. You know, pain and suffering are relative concepts, but certainly many white working class people right now perceive themselves to be in extreme pain. The cause of their pain is largely due to decisions that have been made by corporations to relocate plants, factories, other places of employment offshore and to places where they can get away with paying pennies for work that they were paying a living or reasonable wage for here in the U.S. It has everything to do with decisions made by government to redirect funds that should be used for social services and for infrastructure into the military. And it has left lots of people living lives that they have not been accustomed to living, and they're not happy about it. But enter the scene demagogues like DeSantis and Trump and the others who don't want to miss a good opportunity to exploit misery. And they have as their objective to redirect the anger and the frustration of these people in ways that will benefit them politically, economically, and otherwise. And in order to do that, it is important for these people to be perceived as victims, which they are in many respects, but not victims of major corporations and corrupt government, but victims of people of color. Primarily brown people coming across the border, black people who ascend to positions that they really should not have because America was never intended for them. And in order for them to perceive themselves as victims, they have to continue to feel as though historically they have been victimized. And the only way that they're going to continue to perceive themselves to be that type of victim is if the information available to them affirms that message and reaffirms it. And it's important that children, white children in schools, receive that message too, so that they feel no responsibility to correcting historical injustices against people who really have faced the type of oppression that we're all very familiar with. So the narrative that's in the curriculum has to be one which does not make them feel in any way responsible for historical crimes against humanity, including slavery or anything else. It has to be a message that affirms the idea that people of color really are not only on the same level as the white community, but in some ways are above them, that they have ascended to places in the society that are in some ways superior to those of the white population, the white working class population, which should inspire a desire or drive among these people to reclaim that which is just. And what's just is for nobody to be superior to anybody else. We all need to be on an even playing field, and these black and brown people have ascended above where we are, and they need to be cut down and brought back down to the same level. You have to inspire in these people a ferocious anger, a consistent commitment to making America great again. And you can't do that unless they are deprived of information which would teach them otherwise, which would cause them to have a different mindset. So all of this makes perfect sense. At least, it does to me. I mean, I understand why they're doing it and how they're doing it. So it doesn't come as a surprise to me. I think the only question is what's to be done about it. I think Dr. King and Santita, your father, and others in the movement in the 1960s reaffirmed a really basic fundamental principle. And that is that when you have a law which is unjust, you don't comply with the law. You just don't. As people of God, as people who are committed to morality and justice, when you have an unjust law, you just don't comply with it. And it unfortunately, I think, falls to people within the public education system in Florida to go deep into that place within their hearts to determine whether they're going to comply on the ground with this type of direction in terms of their teaching. And that's a really heavy weight for the rest of us to try and put on their shoulders. And I think we have a responsibility to do what the movement did back in the 60s, and that is to strategize and to develop a plan which makes sense and which in ways that, to the extent we can, protects those who choose to go a different way. It does take a certain level of courage to do that sort of thing. A former church member of mine who's passed on was a track coach in the public education system, and he was called into the office on a number of occasions and given strict direction not to rally his team before track meets for a group prayer. And he would just nod his head and say, okay, and then he would immediately go back out and have prayer with his team. I think we have to have that level of commitment in order to deal with it. And that's just on the micro level. On the larger level, as I've always said, revolution is the only solution.
Attorney Mark Fancher, we've got a full house today talking about this new K through 12 policy that will compel Floridians to be taught that slavery was a good thing for Black people because they acquired skills. It was a personal benefit. I cannot wait to hear from Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor to see how this works legislatively. I mean, do we have any remedies? How is this working? And what's happening up in Wisconsin? I mean, they're about to... Are we going to have race-sensitive financial aid? Not if the Republicans have their way. We got to talk about this on the Santita Jackson Show. Everybody go over to the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Head on over there and let's talk about slavery in the United States. Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show in just a few minutes. Everybody, this is a real hard conversation for America to have. I mean, I'm on YouTube, Facebook right now. Why do you think that is? We don't want to have this conversation.
One thing, Santita, I just want to make one quick comment. One skill we have all developed is picking out a racist like DeSantis and a racist like Trump. Mm-hmm. And I'll leave it at
that. But they're expressions of a deeper problem we have here. Because you get people warmed up, they will tell they'll tell all Black folks, you need to go back to where you came from. It's like, are you serious right now?
Well, Santita, I got to get ready to go
I didn't
shortly.
know that.
So,
okay.
But this is not. I think we make the discussion harder. This is not a hard discussion. It is an intentional avoidance of a discussion because the U.S. tries to avoid any admission of violating law that might leave it to be culpable. The whole conversation around reparations and restitution, anytime there's been a declaration from international bodies that the transatlantic slave trade was a crime against humanity, the United States has been very intentional about remaining silent on that declaration, because to then admit it and then have to deal with your participation and driving of it then leaves you potentially vulnerable to accountability in other tribunals. Now, whether or not the United States is going to honor anything that comes out of those tribunals is another question. But this is an intention. This is not I don't want to talk about it. This is the equivalent of the United States attempting to plead the fifth so that they do not have to accept criminal responsibility for what they have imposed on an entire mass of people over decades and centuries. And for Florida who would be the first state that we would often talk about, but they weren't one of the original 13 colonies because of where they fell in the sequence. For it to be the place that this policy comes out and to do it in a full-throated sort of way, like somehow or other this craziness makes sense, is an indication of wondering who's next, because this is not a thing. This is a thing that's going to become a trend. And what we must do is, as Dwight has said, we've got to boycott. Let's start with Publix, headquartered in Florida. Let's get them. If we're going to talk about how we're going to teach it, we go back and create community-based schools, and maybe we have a creative conversation with the largest education system in Florida outside of the school system there is Disney. Let's have a conversation about it. And then ultimately, let's look at potential litigation to publish in a curriculum that somehow or other a people who were harmed and targeted benefited from this is the equivalent of libel and slander. Should we consider and test whether or not there is a class action suit against the school system, possibly a Title VI claim, because this will have a disparate impact on Black students in the school system in the state of Florida, and we should try it and challenge it and make them spend the money defending it until
30 seconds.
They will change it and never bring this foolishness back again.
Mark, what do you think about that?
Oh, it's certainly a viable, it's a strategy, or at least certain tactic that can be included in a collection of tactics. But I think the bottom line is we really have to do a couple of things. Well, we have to hit back as much as we can in all the different ways that we can.
Hold
but
that
also
thought.
we really need.
Hold that thought. I want you all to talk about that.
Okay.
Just real quick, Todd, before you go.
Change the world. We can change the world. We can change the world. Change the world.
This is the Santita Jackson Show.
War and hate to a place of love. It's not too late. Gotta save the children. We can't wait. Let's change the world. I am
The Santita Jackson Show, WCPT 820, the nation's largest progressive talk radio station, AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota, YouTube, the Santita Jackson Show. Please get on over there. We'll be talking about this and some other things on Sunday on Keep Up Alive with Reverend Jesse Jackson. Go to iHeart so that you can connect with us. I know you've got to go, Reverend Dr. Yuri, and I know Marnie's going to have to go. Dr. Reeves, excuse me. And I know Mark Fancher had a response to you, but very quickly, a remedy. You were saying you agree with Dwight that boycotts should be in our toolbox. Reverend Dr. Yuri.
Absolutely. We should make it untenable that any corporation would want to do business or set up shop in the state of Florida. That's first and foremost. We should go right at not only the businesses that are headquartered there, but the major shareholders. When we look at their filings, who is helping to sustain the economic interest of a state that is so intent on disparaging the historical reputation of a people who have continued to suffer from the horrors of the transatlantic slave trade? That's number one. Number two, we should put the state on notice that not only will there be a boycott, there will be litigation, and begin to start talking about strategies to address the fact that in policy they have published intentionally what they know to be an untruth that causes harm to the reputation of every Black student, Black person in the state of Florida, and make them defend against a class action libel and slander suit. Every time it gets told, file another suit. I don't care if we get dismissed every time we get to some sort of dispositive motion procedurally. But if we do not keep this state in the news on their heels for having the audacity to be ignorant enough to publish it and think that somehow it makes sense, then shame on us, because we become complicit in what's going to become the new trend of somehow saying that Black people benefited. It has been the lie that has gone on behind the scenes in every instance when we've tried to develop Black studies as a discipline, when we've tried to correct white history in terms of its representation, and to stand by and watch this means that we then hold the keys to the craziness that is coming out of Florida. This is not just a Florida thing. This has been an America thing from the very beginning, because they have intentionally tried to plead the fifth, because they know if they admit that they were participants in a crime against humanity, there is potential culpability in international tribunals, because it is a violation of international law. So if they want to fight, let's fight. But what we will not do is stand idly by and think that somehow or other they get a pass on something as egregious as a policy that is an affront, not just to common sense, but to good education. That's all I got.
Reverend Dr. Todd Ewing, thank you for being with us today. Very quickly, Dwight.
And it's not the first time they've done that. I mean, Hattie McDaniels got an Oscar for playing the Happy Negro, and Griffith did a movie about trying the Happy Negroes, even if it was white people in blackface. But what happened then was the NAACP boycotted Birth of a Nation and ran them out of the theaters. When Arizona resisted Dr. King's Day, we boycotted Arizona until they start singing "We Shall Overcome." I think that we have to make some examples out of some of these people. We need to pull our kids out of the football players out of
Florida,
FAMU, in the University of Florida, where they make all their money off of our athletes. There should be some people targeted. That's why I said we should look at the Koch brothers and all the products they make and put a mass boycott on them.
Now, FAMU is the HBCU. You think they should go there or take them out of Florida State?
No, not FAMU, Florida State.
Okay.
I'm sorry, Florida State and the University of Florida. Yeah. All of those white institutions that exploit black athletes for their benefit. We have to make some examples out of these guys, so that it become untenable for them to take that position. We have to put the fear of God in them.
Well, that's why.
That's why I say there are other communities you can't even say that, you can't even kid that way about.
Mm-hmm.
They censored Kennedy the other day for making just a tacit remark that they found offensive about the Jewish community. We have to make these people examples so that there's a price to be paid for disrespecting us.
Well, let me go to Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor. Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor, the day after, was it the evening of the Supreme Court decision on eliminating affirmative action, the head of your state legislature, the leading legislator, said, okay, we're going to end race-based scholarships. And now you see K through 12, what's happening with the education system. I see this spreading like a virus, State Senator Taylor. I mean, I just don't think it's going to stop in Florida.
I agree, Santita. And, we need to actually even go back and think about what happened in, I don't know how many people remember what happened in 2015, but to the point that others have said, this isn't new. In 2015, it was, is it McGraw, I believe it is the publishing company?
McGraw-Hill?
They put the book, exactly. They put in a book about, slavery was basically, immigrants, that came over. And it was a mother who was a PhD at the university teaching, I think, a professor, if I'm not mistaken. But even if she wasn't, it was her son who sent her a text or something saying, we were good workers, wasn't we? And she was livid. She did a video on Facebook. It got like 1 million, almost 2 million views and hits back then, but she was livid about that they wanted to put this in textbooks. And so back then, it was all the things that everyone is saying. I think it was an important moment back then that we should have did, because the textbooks that happen in a Texas end up being the content that's used across the nation. And so in there the concept of suggesting that slavery was a good thing. We weren't forced immigrants and so on and so forth. So the publishing company came back and said that they had missed saying that we were forced immigrants. And but in the end, my point is I still can't say that the representation was fully accurate. So this is going to continue to spread. One of the things the Republicans have showed us, if they've showed us nothing else through ALEC and through other coordinated efforts, is when they do it in one place, it's viral. It goes viral across the nation. And so I agree. We need to look at our forefathers like a Reverend Jackson and a Martin Luther King and, Harriet Tubman. And you can go back to 1400 and find people who were rebelling and pushing. If you've not gone to the National African American Museum, you should. And take the elevator down and go from 1400 and then take your way all the way back up, because it's clear that DeSantis needs to, and whoever wrote the curriculum standards that they're going to use in Florida. And in my state, I'm here to tell you that whether it is when they did, to go to the point that the other panelists stated, if it's when they did the history for the Jewish community, we did a whole curriculum. It's a requirement that students in middle school and high school have to be a part of the curriculum. When I did, and you can go to Wisconsin Eye to see the speech that I did and asked that we add in the Black Holocaust. I said, it's horrible what happened in another country to the Jewish community. But what about what happened on these shores to Black people? And very candidly, it's still remnants of happening to us from Jim Crow to today. So this is not going to stop. And if we don't say something, then it will soon continue to be just like we treated, with all due respect, violence in our community. We become we become to the point that it doesn't affect us the same. I can't even think of the desensitized. Thank you so much. Exactly. We become desensitized to what is being done and said. Look, the people who got the six-figure jobs, who comfortable, who living in the suburbs, who did all the things or doing all the things that people only dreamed of and hoped for and prayed for back in the day. They couldn't even think this far for what some of us are doing today. For those people that are in those positions, it's our responsibility to do something. I saw in the museum, it was a quote. It said, when injustice becomes law, resistance becomes a duty.
Boom, mic drop on that. I mean, how we have teachers who are now afraid to teach. I mean, they're afraid. They don't know how to approach this. I mean, Dr. Byer, do they have an obligation to resist what they're being asked to teach? What's going to happen in the fall? Is Dr. Byer there? Then let me ask. Let me just go down the list. Dr. Reeves.
Answer it.
Okay, you tell me.
Well, my first response is, just like people are out there picketing because salaries are horrific, because there's a huge gap between the worker and the person that's the CEO and in management, teachers too have to stand up. If they are not the person to speak about the harm that will happen to Black children, to their future, to their sense of self, then they are like the mother of the child in a way in school. And so if they do not speak up, if they do not protest, if they do not demand different, then they are being complicit. So I expect the teachers to speak up. As a matter of fact, I appreciate the teachers union in Florida speaking up and saying something. Now, I will say that in a city where we lead in the numbers of people that are in our city, and we are the highest number of people in our school district, we don't even have Black history programs in all the schools. In a city that is the worst place been ranked the worst place to raise a black child and to be a black American. We don't even have that. So I'm hoping that people stop being freaking comfortable and that people are willing to do more, because if not, they will continue to do this stuff and roll over people. I don't know if you know, in Wisconsin, in Milwaukee, they just did legislation that said if we're going to get state money, we can't use none of it on diversity, equity, and inclusion. And our freaking mayor agreed to it because he felt we were in a desperate position because we would go bankrupt. Except what he didn't hear was the people who said, well, then bankrupt us, because we refused to accept it on those terms.
Yeah. Santita, this is Dr. Arnold. One thing I wanted to comment on, and I am so glad that we have a legislator like this lady in Wisconsin. We need more people like. And you know, when you mentioned the Holocaust, I have a friend. He's a Jewish rabbi. So we talk about some things, on the side. I talk to people from different religious backgrounds. But when you mentioned the Holocaust, there was a movie that came out where there was a teacher who was teaching these inner city kids about the Holocaust and brought one of the survivors, from Auschwitz in to talk to them about, what the meaning was. So they had this revelation that they were, that oppression is wrong, right? And when I was talking to him, he said that, people can learn from these, this instance. It was such a horrible, tragic thing. And I said, Rabbi, what would have happened if in Nazi Germany, it wasn't 4 years that we had the Holocaust, but 400 years? And then at the end of it, the Nazi party said, oh, we're going to give you freedom, but we're still going to control the laws that take care of your life. That the Nazi party was still in power. I said that is what's happened basically in America. We still have some people who are in power who are still part of the collective consciousness of white racism. And not all white people are bad. I'm not saying that. But I'm saying the collective consciousness of white racism, which is implicit bias, which we haven't spoken about. But when you start talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, those things are trying to overcome a miseducation, a fundamental miseducation that has occurred in this country. And we don't have to turn to Holocaust survivors in our community. We can turn to our grandparents. We can turn to them about their parents. We can learn generationally about the trauma that has been transmitted through 400 years in this country where we have been. And the indigenous people have even gone to a heavier degree. I think you were talking about that yesterday, Santita, about the indigenous people and how they have been dramatically impacted by having their land stolen from underneath them. Just like we had our freedom stolen, they had their freedom stolen as well. And we have to raise up as people of color, and that's why I can't understand this person, Manny Diaz Jr. And Kelly Garcia. I'm like, what? Let me see. First of all, do you have a birth certificate? Where were you born, in this country, or were you born in Nazi Germany? Because you're supposed to be people of color, and you're doing this.
Yeah, but you remember, I think that's one of the challenges. The only people who cannot pass into whiteness are black people. Everybody else, after a generation or two, they can get white. And that is kind of, that's, I have no regrets. I have none about that. I just think, that's what you're dealing with. When you get to Florida, yes, I'm making this statement, you understand what happened in Cuba. And I say that, and I had to tell my brother when he was in Congress, he had a debate. It was a respectful, friendly debate about Elian Gonzalez on Larry King's show. And I said, the next time, if you have an opportunity to talk to Gloria Estefan and people of that ilk, as they talk about freedom and what Cuba is not, let them know your grandmother picked beans there and chopped sugarcane there. Let them know that your grandmother said, I was little more than a slave there. Let them know that. Your grandmother looked like she was from West Africa, and those were her social options. Don't you talk to me. And when you get to Florida, you feel that. You feel not race, you feel the racism. And this is what we are seeing. Excuse me, Attorney Fancher, your thoughts?
Yeah, no, that's exactly right, and I think that many people don't appreciate the significance of the Cuban Revolution in that regard. Black people, in particular, were kept on the bottom when Batista was in power there.
Yes.
When Fidel Castro came to power, the first thing that he did was to get on the back of a flatbed truck and to drive it throughout Havana and the rest of the countryside with a long line of black people behind him. And he led this long procession of black people out to his own father's plantation. And once they got there, he started handing out deeds to parcels of that plantation as an indication of what his plans were with respect to race in Cuba. And those white people who had benefited from the prior reality in Cuba never forgave him for that. I mean, they may claim that they're angry about his so-called communism and all of that. What they're really complaining about is the fact that Fidel Castro elevated black people from the lowest rung into a position of parity and equality in Cuban society, and they'll never forget that. So it doesn't surprise me that they would do this in Florida. But the one other thing I did want to add, if I can. And that is that I think that we need to be cautious about the fact that we too, particularly as people of African descent, have been miseducated in America. We have come to, over time, drift into a feeling, a mindset that the American promise is what they say that it is. That somehow if we continue to agitate enough, if we continue to protest enough, that if we continue to vote enough, that we can transform the United States into this glorious democracy that they always talk about in their rhetoric. And if we really were educated and understood the facts of American history, U.S. history in particular, we would know that from the very beginning, not only did they design the United States to exclude black people, but they said it. There are Supreme Court opinions, most notably Dred Scott versus Sanford, where they say this is not intended for black people. So we can continue to bang away at Florida and demand our rights and all of that. We need to do that. We are compelled to do that. But at the same time, we need to have a different type of frame of mind. We need to have the same frame of mind that many people who come to this country as immigrants have when they know that they're coming into a situation where the United States is not going to cut them any breaks, that they're going to have to make their own way. And when it comes time to educate their children, they don't rely on the public school system to do that. They have Saturday schools where they teach their children their languages, their culture, their history. We may feel that we shouldn't have to do that, but we do have to do that. That's America's reality.
Absolutely. We have to do that. I've got about 4 minutes left. I want to get closing comments from everybody. We can talk a little bit longer on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. But let me ask you, I want a closing thought from you, Dr. Arnold, in about a minute.
Okay. Well, one thing I think, Santita, I'm not sure if you want me to talk about that Supreme Court thing I want to do.
No, let people know there's a connection here.
Okay. Well, I sent this letter to the ACLU, and I'll just read it. It's one paragraph, but it says, I am Colonel Damon Theodore Arnold, MD, MPH, MA, MSTRM, U.S. Army National Guard retired. The Supreme Court decision to overturn affirmative action was illogically formulated and anti-constitutional at its very core by singling out race while refraining from the exclusion of gender, privilege, athleticism, legacy privilege, disabilities, and other protected classes under the 14th Amendment. The Supreme Court has singled me out for exclusion as a member of a protected class. The result is that the other classes now have an inherent advantage over me, which violates my equal protection under the law. This in itself is a violation of the 14th Amendment by the Supreme Court. In essence, the Supreme Court justices have singled out race and placed it in a different light than other factors which have traditionally played a role in the academic admissions decision-making process. They are breaking the very law intent of the 14th Amendment by their action and striking down affirmative action based on race alone. Regardless of the merits of this case, I would like this suit to go on record as a response to an infringement on my fundamental right under the 14th Amendment as a veteran. I served this country during war as a combat medic and should not be mistreated when I return home. There is no justice in this nation if I cannot, at a very minimum, file this lawsuit. And I think that we all making out statements and fighting back. As Reverend Jackson said in Operation Push, as we're doing the conference, the yearly conference, he said, you need to be activists and you need to fight back.
Never
That's
ever
all.
stop. And don't be lied on.
Yes.
We're being
Reverend-
lied on. Wisconsin State Senator Lena Taylor.
Reverend had a quote, Santita, and I'm trying to remember it. Something about, you don't drown in the water. Oh my goodness, I got to go back and try to find it or call Reverend and see if he can remember. Lord Jesus, but
You
it said
drown
something
because you
like,
stopped kicking.
yeah, something like that. Something like that. In shallow water,
It's not,
he said,
shallow
"You don't
water
drown
doesn't
in
kill
shallow
you.
water."
It's when you stop kicking that you drown. That's
It's
true.
because you stop kicking. Exactly.
Oh, okay, Reverend Jesse Jackson getting the quotes.
We need to do like Reverend Jackson: show up, show out, protest, organize, teach, reach one, teach them. I praise God that I have had the opportunity to be under his wing at his foot and to be able to see and watch. And for at times that I have felt my most discouraged in the fights that I've had in Wisconsin. And it's been him and a Minister Farrakhan that remind me that, baby, you don't know nothing about no fight. You don't know nothing about being tired. And Reverend Sharpton, who say black folks some of the hardest people to lead, but they still do it and they still fight and they've dedicated their lives to this. And this is a moment that if we do not realize what is going on, if we do not realize that we need to fight like an Elizabeth Freeman, who in 1800 used the third arm of government, the court system. She sued because she overheard them talking about the Massachusetts Constitution, and she sued for her right to liberty, and it changed her life. So, like, we cannot just take it. You know, I say it's like when they told Kunta Kinte his name was Toby. You not accept the misinformation.
Oh, no. And he never let that go. He never let that go. That's why Alex Haley got it. He said, no, I'm Kunta. I'm Kunta.
Exactly.
And I'm going to get closing thoughts from everybody on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. I love you, everybody. See you on Keep Up Alive on Sunday. Dwight McKee, I want you to wrap things up for us on the other side. But I love you, love you, love you. And let's think about this, everybody. The only way America is really going to grow and mature is together and in truth. Black people were brought here because we had skills. We were brought here not because we were lazy, but because we worked hard. And we were not brought here to be taught something by people who were too unskilled and too lazy to do it themselves. They were not agriculturalists. That's not what you do in Europe. And the agriculturalists in Europe, they have treated like they are the N-words of Europe. That's the Irish. All the folks who work with their hands are treated poorly in Europe. Get out of here. Come on, y'all. Let's grow up in our politics and let America be America again. That is what Langston Hughes told us. Come on now. America never was to me, but America will be. I promise you that. We're going to make America right. We're going to do that. I love you, everybody. Closing thoughts on the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel, but then you got to stay with me. Love you, everybody. Thank you, Paul, for a great show. God bless you, everybody. All right. I'm going to get some Dwight McKee. Your thoughts?
I think we should start a boycott Florida petition on the internet. Click the button that says boycott Florida. And we should begin to start an initiative that I think will grow and be. But again, if there are no consequences, then there's no repentance. You got to build consequences into the proposition.
Yes.
And people will treat you like you let them treat you. And so I think we should start that first. And I think, we should shoot for 10 million signatures on a petition. And really start from there. That's how we used to do it in the old days. We would shut them down. Dr. King, they wouldn't let Rosie on the front of the bus. They shut the bus down.
Shut it down.
Shut it down.
And you did not get a ride. Well, I mean, look, these white women said, no, I'm gonna go pick up Missy May. I need to make my house run. And you have to make people feel it. Politics is not about love, everybody. It ain't no date, it's a destination. It's about power. That's it. And we got to stop falling in love with politicians and with the idea of no. It's a quid pro quo. It's you do for me, I do for you. I do for you, you do for me. That's what it is. And with what's happening in Florida, you need to make them pay. You need to let DeSantis and company know. And I mean, I'm saying the people on the right who are in the Democratic and Republican parties. You need to let them know that this is unacceptable. Oh, come on, girl. Come on. I know these people exist in the Democratic Party too. People need to grow up in their politics. All I ask is if you are a black Republican or an Hispanic Republican or a white Republican, is that when you go in the room, you start fighting for people, but particularly black Republicans. I don't have a problem with you aligning yourself with a particular party. Because I have some black Democrats who will sell you up the river. They have done it and they do it. My thing is, what are you going? I need you to go in the room and be my advocate. If you're going to do that, then I am going to stand with you. If you're not going to do that, I'm going to work to get you removed. It's that simple.
Yes.
A party is not your mama and it's not your daddy. It's just a mule that you're riding on. That's all.
Yeah, Santita, that makes so much sense because, one of my friends who's a Dr. Britt, but he always say, all of those of skin ain't necessarily kin.
No.
And we have Clarence sitting on that Supreme Court. And
Clarence Thomas ain't no Thurgood Marshall is what I say.
No. He's not, but Thurgood Marshall told us, do not replace me with someone who's black just because they're black. Don't do it. He said it. Mark, did he not say that? Is Mark Fancher there? You all know he said, don't do that. Don't do it. You have black people who are imperialists. You have black folks who'll drop a bomb or kill people just like Lieutenant Calley did in Vietnam. And you have some white people who will be conscientious objectors and who will refuse.
That's right. And, one of the things, too, is that, Colin Powell, when he was alive, he really regretted the way that they misled him and the information about going to war with Iraq. And I served 2 tours in combat duty in Iraq. And he was really upset about that. But it was really interesting when I looked at the Florida educational system, what they released as their blueprint for education, and they adopted it. The school board passed it unanimously. They had Colin Powell listed as one of the first people that African Americans should learn about. But what they wanted you to learn about is that he was a great American soldier, but they don't want you to know that they misled him and the information they were providing him, which is one of the biggest regrets he had in his life.
Well, they only honor those who service empire, Dr. Arnold. If Reverend serviced empire, he would have been president. That's why when someone came up to me at the convention and said he needs a Nobel Prize, he said, you mean to tell me with all these jokers who've dropped bombs who have Nobel Prizes, do you think I want my father in that? No. Y'all keep that. The Nobel Prize they gave to Dr. King, I want him to have that one. Okay, yes, Dr. Reeves, you about to go into work. What's on your mind?
No, I wanted to let Dr. Arnold know the book that he was searching for was Freedom Writer's Diary. The interesting thing about that book is those kids were actually in a situation in California where the white teachers refused to teach them. And then they finally got a teacher who said, I'm willing to try. And the only reason why she was willing to try is because she was new and she needed a job. But then she realized that she loved teaching. as Senator Taylor said, that teachers have a responsibility. We all have that responsibility to ensure that we educate our students in the right way. A lot of times, most of us who go into education don't go into it for the love of education, but because we need a job, right? So that's something that I know, and a lot of us are worried about in the state of Florida, because we have some very young teachers who are trying to ensure that they can keep their jobs so that they can survive. The choices that they will make in teaching this type of curriculum is something that I'm sure that the union will pay very close attention to, because, of course, not just on the state level, but on the national level, we're paying very close attention to everything that's happening in Florida, as well as ensuring that, like we had our rally recently, there were over 100,000 of us at that rally in Florida during the NEA convention, and we were fighting against the books that were being banned in Florida. Similarly, every time something like this comes out of Florida, we're at the ready and we're there rallying, fighting, and also in the court system fighting to ensure that a lot of these measures are overturned. But I just want to say this. When I first became a teacher in the classroom, I was told that I could not teach the Bible. And I questioned it. I said, why can't I teach the Bible in my classroom? Because it's literature. And what am I teaching? I'm teaching literature. They told me if I taught literature in the classroom, it's one thing, but not the Bible. So I asked what would happen if I did teach the Bible. Well, they let me know that I would not get my tenure. I am 24 years in the New York City Department of Ed, and every year I go into my classroom and I teach the Bible. I have never backed away from that. I've ensured that in teaching the Bible, it is very clear this is literature. Everything that I teach out of the Bible, I don't have to try to change the views and religions of my students. I simply have to educate them on what has been published. It is then up to everyone else who has a problem with what I'm teaching to simply say that what I'm teaching is not factual. But if they do challenge that, then I can point to every history book that's been written where it says that Christopher Columbus discovered America, and question how could he possibly do that when there were actually people living here before he landed here.
No, wait. Given the fact that
that's a fight.
Wait a minute. Given the fact that he was lost and he never got to these shores. No. I mean, no. He's an explorer who was lost. That makes him wrong.
But our history books have never been challenged in a major way. And that is why we see over the years where things like this is happening. We have not had a major challenge to any of the textbooks that are taught to our children. We've just had teachers who are smart enough to bring into their classrooms their own lesson plans simply based on curricula that have been put out. See, the thing I think the public needs to understand is that when curriculum is created, it does not mandate that teachers teach to the curriculum. We don't have to teach word for word what is printed in the curriculum. We have to make that curriculum our own. And I know that there are teachers in Florida who will make that curriculum their own and choose what they want to teach and how to teach it and when to teach it. The manner in which we choose to teach a lot of things in history a lot of times is that we don't bring into our conversations multiple sides. If anyone has ever checked a history book that's taught in public schools, you will see that there's barely a chapter on Black history. That has never been challenged. So we have to start creating our own, writing our own, and teaching our own.
Well, you know what?
I would say, let me say this.
We have to tell the truth. The truth. That's what Carter G. Woodson and Mr. Rogers, they wrote the truth. I don't want my, there's, you know, when people say, this is my truth, this is your truth. No, truth is neutral. There's no such thing as my truth or your truth. There's the truth. There is truth. Tell the truth. That's all you need to do.
But America has never been a country that believed in telling
but I'm simply
the truth.
saying we need to change up the language on that. Because I'm not talking about my truth. I can talk about I'm hearing you. I'm just saying I can talk about my experience. But I'm saying the truth is the truth.
Yeah.
And we need to change that language. Yes.
You know what? one thing I always played on these word semantic things. That, and one of the things I learned in science is this: it's not whether something is true or false; it's whether it's valid or invalid.
Thank
so
you.
From a scientific standpoint, it's the validity of what they're saying is absolutely false. It's absolutely incorrect. That they are not valid, and what they're presenting is the true history of this country. I remember, getting back to Christopher Columbus. Christopher Columbus sailed the ocean blue in 1492. Remember, everyone had a little phrase, and he came back to this country 11 times. He went to Hispaniola, so he never stepped foot on this continent.
Here.
But he was in. He was in Hispaniola. But between 1493 and 1555, less than 100 years, they killed 14 million Arawak Indians and beheaded them, cut their arms off, their legs, raped women, threw spears into pregnant women to see the closest to the woman tied to the tree, to the baby. They actually were absolute animals that came over here, and they treated the people, indigenous people, like dirt. And women were actually, putting dirt in the vaginal cavity so they wouldn't be repeatedly raped, and killed their own children as they were fleeing because they didn't want to go into slavery. That's what really sparked the transit.
Well, they were the barbarians.
Yes.
They were the barbarians.
Barbarians,
literally
animalistic, evil.
Yeah,
evil.
absolutely.
And
evil.
that is the.
Yeah, they were the Visigoths and the Vandals and the Ostrogoths. They were the Vandals. They were the barbarian tribes.
But you know what I think we need to hear? We need to hear the
We don't
specifics of what Dr. Arnold is telling us, of what happened to the women, of what happened to them. The numbers, 14 million people. I mean, are you serious?
They wiped out an entire civilization, and they are, and then you turn around and raise your cross and say that I'm going to pray on the weekend, but on on Sunday I'm going to pray about it. On Monday I'm going to use that cross to burn and to lynch and rape people and destroy their lives and steal their freedom. But I'm going to pray for 1 hour on a Sunday to let you know that I'm godly.
And then I want to bring you into the church and put you behind me. And you expect me not to come up with a church? I'm so glad Black folks said, oh, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to create my own church. Thank you, Richard Allen.
I'm not.
Lena?
I was just going to say, and folks is praying and got, a picture of some white dude with some wavy hair up on their wall, and word is he was a rapist. So I'm just saying it is important to be informed, and we perpetuate the misinformation by not having times where we are educating our children ourselves, because so many individuals have not gotten any kind of true Black history. Misinformation also happens from a lack of education. And that is a huge problem. And now people have gotten comfortable and they've moved from communities, and we are not the same type of cohesive, help our brother, help our sister community of people that we used to be when people were migrating from the South to the North and other areas in the U.S. in order to be able to get a better life. This is really, I mean no harm. What they're doing in Florida is horrific. But this is really also about us. Because we have to decide that we feel like Fannie Lou Hamer, that we sick and tired of being sick and tired. We have to decide that injustice requires us to have a duty to fight. We have to decide that we're going to elect individuals who will represent our interests. We have to decide to hold people accountable who are elected and who do not look out for our best interests. It is shameful for me as an elected official to be among individuals who watch people say that they will not support the Voter Rights Act under the pretense that we can combine all minorities to create districts that have less Black people but more minorities, and that somehow is in our best interest. Have we not looked at everywhere in the world Black people have been enslaved? Mm-hmm. And so I don't mean no harm to my brothers and sisters who are Latino. I don't mean no harm. But they quit not to vote for us and vote for white folks. And some of them check the box that they white if if one of their parents is white. So in the end, like, we have to decide to create the standard, because that's what happened. That's why forever I will love me some Harriet Tubman. She was not only somebody who made her way to freedom, she came back to reach and get others. And she carried when she did it. So she shot the people that wasn't with the program. We can't necessarily shoot the people with the program, but we sure need to call them out.
And exclude them from this part of the struggle. I mean, look.
That's hard. The problem is some of them have been so anointed into leadership positions. Santita, it's challenging for me to know I sat in the room with other Black electeds, and when we talked about the need for Black folks to be in the administration and they had nothing to say. It's hard for me to watch that those are the kinds of leaders that are anointed around me in my community, because what they want is they want the people who will not spew the truth. They want the people who will not fight back. They want the people who will not say, I'm not taking it.
But but the thing is, we are fused. No, because we are confused by the anointing and the appointing, right? Because we still worship that which is white. We still worship that which we see exalted. Instead of saying, wait, I'm not trying to brown up imperialism. Okay? Some of us are. Some of us want to be the first. Some of us want to be the only. Some of us really want in. Some of us want to go in and we don't care that when we're brought in to undermine, if not destroy and kill Black people and people who are oppressed all over the world. We don't care. And we keep honoring them instead of asking, what are you doing now that you are head of AFRICOM? Because all I know is that Gaddafi tried to keep you out of Africa, and then they killed him and took all of his gold and completely undermined the state of Libya.
Yes. Yeah.
And they did it under a Black president. And y'all still proud of that. Not like I said, this woman came up to me and said, your father needs a Nobel Peace Prize. I said, no, he doesn't. I said, as long as you acknowledge that he's a man of peace, I said, that's more than enough for me. And this woman got very angry with me. Said, you can get angry as you want to. Because the last people I've seen who've been getting these Nobel Peace Prizes have dropped more bombs on the world than anybody in history. I said, I don't want that for him. That's not our history.
Yeah. Yeah.
You need to stop. Santita, you need to stop exalting these systems and these awards that oppress you. Stop it. You look at the Queen of England. That's the richest. Now her son is the richest human being on earth. The only human being on earth who is allowed to own whole countries. He's worth in excess of $30 trillion. Bill Gates is not the richest person on earth. Jeff Bezos, Slim Hilo, these people are not the richest people on earth. They are the whole family. And I'm supposed to get excited because y'all get a Black girl in there who never identified as a Black person, who pledged to white sorority at Northwestern University, who the Black people in England have said, well, she had to learn how to be Black here. Really, that's a hell of a time to learn. I don't have time for that. I don't need a Black princess because I don't believe in kings and queens. The fact that I'm the child of God is enough for me. I'm just keeping it 100 with you. I mean, this is ridiculous. Yeah. That's why we're in this mess. Because many of us do support. We support these. We want to be in. We didn't want to end slavery. We just wanted to get into the big house. We want to hear Sally Hemings' story. We don't care. We care less about Fannie Lou Hamer and Harriet Tubman. Hello, you know it's true. Oh, did you know Sally Hemings was really maybe only 1/8 black? That excites us. Come on
You
now.
know, Santita, you are talking. You preach, 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 and I was talking to you yesterday about this public health initiative that I'm, looking at, public health professionals of the African diaspora. But you bring up a comment, and as was mentioned before about the global impact of racism and slavery throughout the world. We have to unite with our African brothers and sisters. They were at the Push Convention. Beautiful, beautiful people.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the best people I've met in my lifetime. And the African Americans here, our brothers and sisters, we need to stop this infighting about, this right or that. We have a right of our family, of our connectedness. They have tried to destroy and separate us in every way possible. They have been trying to exterminate us. And in order to overcome that, we have to have the power to, as you were saying, Santita, not honor these awards, these fictitious awards. And when I was in the military, I got the third piece of ribbon, right, on my uniform. I had 39 medals in total after that, right?
Mm.
That third piece of ribbon was given to me by a colonel that had like a lot of ribbons on his chest, right? And I looked at that and I said, this is just a piece of ribbon. So you're going to take my life and my freedom, everything from me, so that I can have a little piece of ribbon on my shirt?
Oh.
And when we start talking about going over, and it was the people I was with, my unit, the people that I was working with, and I made it a priority and also an absolute requirement that they use these educational loans. I said, because I don't want to be on the front line with someone who's stupid enough not to take something for free for your education, because that means you have nothing to live for. I don't want you next to me on the front line, right? So, so those people who are Terrence Thomas and all that, like you were saying, those people in positions of power that we have elected, if you are not doing what we're supposed to be doing for people, you are the weakest among us, not the strongest.
There you go. That's why they were chosen, Dr. Arnold. They don't want the strongest among us. We send the strong, they choose the weak.
Amen.
Yes.
Everyone we have sent has been the best. Everyone we have sent has been the strongest. Everyone they put before us, you pick them apart, you find out they're weak. You ain't gonna lead me across the street, let alone the freedom. I don't want them.
That's right. And I think we have freedom fighters coming up, like the representative now in Wisconsin who's been speaking. But we had two brothers kicked out of the legislature, right, for standing up for what they felt was right about gun rights, and here we are. We have people who are now standing up. We have to support those people and not allow them to be ejected.
Mm-hmm.
And the educator was just speaking about what you can teach in classrooms and that people have control over their own curriculums. We have to support those people that are teaching what we want them to teach, because they're going to get some blowback. I'm just waiting for those cases to come up where someone comes up and says an educator who is teaching African American history in the right way and say that this is an infringement and try to eject that teacher or suppress or censor that this is censorship and against the First Amendment. All those Second Amendment gun rights activists, there's a reason why they put the First Amendment before the Second Amendment. It's the freedom of speech. And if they are violating the First Amendment fundamental right by blocking African American education.
Look, I think it's a great thing, and I think that Mark Fancher made the point that we need to have like our Jewish brothers and sisters have Hebrew school, they have Jewish school. Black folks need to do that. Stop. And why would you? Carter G. Woodson said you do not have your oppressor teach your child. That's crazy.
Yes.
You teach your child. My mom and daddy taught me. and the people around them. Why would you, someone who wants you to be on the back of the bus, you think they're going to teach you to go to the front?
Yeah.
I mean,
And you know, one of the things too, Santita, is that the people who do the right things, you know, they always become demonized. They try to attack your father. They tried to attack Elijah Muhammad. They have tried to attack so many historical, and Malcolm X. You go through the history, Medgar Evers, right? They have tried to attack anyone who stood up, who said, you are trying to miseducate our people.
Mm-hmm.
And the Nation of Islam, one of the things I love about what they do is they make sure that those kids hear the truth about what is really happening in society. We need to have that as a universal principle about how we take care of our kids in this society.
Well, look, with
And
all
we
these
all
wonderful
need to
churches, that's what they need to be doing.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
otherwise it's just an empty shell. You're not doing anything.
Right. And that's why the kids are not coming there, because they hear other truths. And then you are not preaching what they need to hear.
Mm-mm. No, you need every black church, every church with a black orientation ought to be teaching these children about history. And if you're not doing that, you are irrelevant and you are not going to make it. Because what you're selling, I ain't buying. I don't need it. I'm gonna get closing thoughts. Oh no, keep on going. Because next we're gonna have you on next week to talk about Senator Taylor. Is she still there?
Yes, ma'am.
You know, he of course this Dr. Arnold, who has been so laudatory of you. He is the former head of our Illinois Department of Public Health. Brilliant academician. He calls himself being in retirement, but this is just giving him the space to do all these other things that he has really wanted to do. But he is. I don't want to jump the gun on you. You're doing something with respect to affirmative action. What is that, Dr. Arnold? Because you read the paragraph.
That's the paragraph I read about the making sure that we all put something in writing, whether it's to a congressional member. Senator Taylor has already been outspoken, which is really what we need our legislators to do. They have the courage and the strength and the will to do that, to tell the truth and to speak to the powers that be. Doing this is just really calling out the issue that the Supreme Court itself has violated its stare decisis, as they call it, their established way of looking at things. They've done it with abortion rights. They've done it with now affirmative action. They'll do it with voting if they can do it. They want to roll back, and Clarence Thomas himself said, this is not just the beginning. We were looking at rolling back a lot of things that are in there. I'm not sure if he said that while he was on his $50 million vacation, although he's trying to portray himself as being a country boy, in poverty with the people. But this guy is absolutely diabolical and should not be serving on the Supreme Court. We need to have term limits for the Supreme Court as well. And we need a way of us. It's really bizarre to me that we can elect the executive branch, we can elect the legislative branch, and we have no power over the Supreme Court.
Oh, we have power.
They actually do inside. Yes,
we just don't exercise it. They can be impeached. They can be removed. We want other people to do the heavy lifting for us. We want the preacher to be without sin, but we can sin all day long. We just want everybody else to do our work. If you're going to be a citizen in a republic and not a subject in a monarchy, you got to do the work. There are no shortcuts here.
Yes. And his legacy is a legacy of shame. He is to me, he is on the level of Judas with Jesus. And one day he may hang himself. But
especially when you consider who he came behind. I'm so glad that Justice Jackson was there to be able to give words counter his buffoonery.
Yes.
I'm gonna tell you.
Between her,
Oh, her
we
and
need on the
Sonia
court.
Sotomayor.
Yes, yes.
Oh.
People for what's right. And then that one woman who actually voted against women, who's on the Supreme Court, she needs to go. And women in this, even white women need to wake up and realize that this is part of the oppression of women in this country too. And if you are voting to support a supremacist, oppressive regime that goes against your basic rights and fundamental nature as a woman, then you're going to end up deserving everything you get. If you're voting for someone like DeSantis, you need to check out. And I think what needs to happen is the American Association of I'm not even sure what it's called, Black psychologists, psychiatrists, to send a letter to DeSantis and to his committee and offer them free psychological evaluations and medication.
You know what they need to do? They need to
Send him
march
a
on him.
ticket
March
to
on
the
him.
National African American Museum and walk him through.
He
And have
doesn't care.
Reverend Jackson next to him. I know he don't, but I'm just saying.
No,
we
I
need to
think, but
walk
you know
him
what you
through.
need to do? You need to march on him. He's a politician.
You right.
He understands numbers. Okay? I'm not asking
Numbers,
for your
yeah.
sensitivity. I don't need you to fall in love with me, sugar. You keep all of that. All I need you to do,
Right,
I need you
that's
to get
all.
out of my way. I need my fair share of the resources that I put into the pot, and then you can go on about your business. Do whatever you want to do. As long as you
Exactly.
do not tread
That's
on
right.
me. That's all. I don't care. I don't care if your
Yeah.
eyes, because I don't care about these politicians who get watery eyed when they hear my story. I don't care about all. I'm not waiting for that for you. I don't need you to do that and be that for me. I don't need that from you. What I need from you is for you to do right. That's all I need you to do. And then you can
Yeah.
get out of my way and keep on stepping. I don't need you to like me. I need you to respect me. That's all. I don't need you to think I'm beautiful. I don't need any of that from you. I don't need you. No, I need none of that. I need your respect.
Mm-hmm.
That's all I need. I don't even need it from you. I require it. After that, you can go on about your business.
Hey.
I don't care. I'm an adult.
Right.
I don't need that from you. I
Yeah,
don't need your
yeah.
acceptance. I don't need you to come to my school and tell me, oh, this is good. No. I don't need you to
Mhm.
like my food. When we get in these cooking competitions, all the black cooks almost always lose because your food is too salty, it's too savory, it's too. Black folks love flavor, not flavor. So why don't you stay over here and do what you
Yeah.
like to do? Stop needing someone else to accept you.
And was it Gil Scott Heron said that the revolution will not be
Not gonna be
televised?
televised. No, come on.
It'll be.
It's gonna be
We
tweeted.
all.
No, I'm just kidding.
You are crazy.
It's just too much. It's too much because it's the only way I think we're gonna get the young people engaged. The young people don't have the history because they've not been taught. They didn't live it. They've been able to have the benefit of the work of our ancestors. So they don't appreciate the moment that we in right now.
Well, they're
They
going
don't
to appreciate it.
Right.
I can't even believe that in 2023 I have less rights as a woman in my state than I did last year.
No, but you know what?
And so
it's good.
So
because you could,
I'm
Lena,
good. I'm good. What I'm trying, no, I'm good. But the point I'm trying to make is they took women back to the 1800s in the law in Wisconsin,
and
they trying to take black people back.
All I'm
and
trying to say to you is the reason I'm saying it's good is because you have been telling people this for the longest time and they would not listen. Now they're about to get taught the lesson.
Girl, look, I'm not going back.
No, I'm not going back.
So it ain't gonna be no lesson for them to be taught because I'm not going back. I'm gonna fight all the way. I'm asking for them to wake up and get in the fight.
That's my only
I'm
point.
asking people.
Yeah,
right. That's all. We saying the same thing, and I'm asking the people who then went and got their nice cushy jobs, houses, and in the suburbs to wake up and remember that you got a glass ceiling, boo.
But they're losing them, honey. Didn't you see all these women who lost these DEI jobs? The day after the decision was rendered?
I saw it. I saw it. It's hard lessons. I guess you're right. They are getting their lessons. Well, I'm going to be glad when it ripples to the point that we are doing all the things that people have heard in this show today. Like, all I can say, and like in my closing thought to people that I want to say is find something, be found doing more than whatever you were doing yesterday. Be awakened to the point that you're trying to do something more than just live your life. Think about what I always go to Harriet because she's one of my favorites, y'all. I'm sorry, but we ain't even got to go that far. We ain't got to go that far. Go to your own people and the struggle that they've had in your family, and know that injustice is an injustice on humanity that has been done by America to Black people, and do something to push back. Doggone it.
Yeah, one of the things that we've done is in Wisconsin, Robin Voss is a Republican, and he's the one making a movement for grants designated for minority undergraduate students to be dropped. $32 million from the University of Wisconsin budget to be cut, and loss of 200 diversity, equity, and inclusion jobs. So he needs to be voted out of office. We need to vote. You need to have a Democratic groundswell to go out and put him out of office. Put anyone who has the audacity to try to infringe on our rights, put them out of office. End of story. We need to get rid of these people. And, even the terms diversity, equity, and inclusion, they are positive terms. In other words, we're trying to make things positively happen. We're trying to make sure that there's a homogeneity in society where we are treating people equally. The real words that should be used is we should be anti-racist. So we have watered down and made politically correct the terms that we're using to try to solve this problem, and they are rejecting even those watered down terms.
That's absolutely. And we need to stop. We're the ones. And we keep waiting and waiting, and we're the ones we're waiting for.
Amen.
Come on, listen, it's your time. All these people, I've had people come up to me crying about Reverend and, oh, I feel so sad. Why? I said, he's run his leg. What you gonna do? I said, he's running his leg and he's on wheels now. What are you going to do?
Yes.
He's speaking up for you and he can barely speak. What are you gonna do? What are you gonna do?
And every African American, no matter where you have gone to school, even though Howard's the best, that.
Come on now.
No matter where
come on.
School, no matter where you've gone to school, you owe a debt of gratitude to Reverend Jackson for your ability to go to school and get a degree. He didn't ask you to go to school to get a degree so you could be, wealthy and healthy and run around and ignore your people. Use that degree as a tool that he allowed you to have in the movement.
I mean, would you just pick up a book, y'all? Just do that. Just pick them up. Don't have a book allergy. Don't have an information allergy. Just come on.
One thing to do, and trying to find something to do. Don't make it. I don't mean no harm, but eat the elephant one bite at a time. You don't have to go out and start a rainbow push. You know what I'm saying? You can send a donation. You can look up elected officials. You can donate to them. You know what you can do? You can go to a public meeting and you can give comments. You know what you can do? You can write a letter and send it to Florida, to the governor. You say, I don't know their information, Senator. Go on the Google. Look on the Google, and you can find it. You can find it. My point is you can find something to do that you didn't do yesterday that's new. Do that, and then do the old stuff. Do the old stuff. Participate. Participate in the NAACP so it has an arm, and ask them to write a letter. And if they can't write the letter, and give it to the president.
Start a petition drive. I say, and start a petition drive. The boys out Florida, you be decided.
I think we need to start talking about that, Dwight. I really do.
Petition drive. Let's stay on one song. Everybody sing the same song
That
from the
one
same
string
hymnal
guitar.
on the same line.
Absolutely. Don't go to Florida.
Petition.
And don't go.
Boycott Florida. Don't go. Cancel your trip. Come somewhere else.
That's it.
And that's it. And that's all you can. There are a lot of lovely things you can do in South Carolina and Alabama. Get out of there. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. Have some self-respect. As my mother says all the time, and my mother and father said, have an insult level. You've got to have an insult level. People ought to know. No, I can't say that to so-and-so because they are not going to appreciate this. They're going to let us know that this is unacceptable. I'm going to tell you, one thing you got to understand about Reverend Jackson, there were some things that you had to know you couldn't say to him. Because they were like, whoa, Reverend Jackson had an insult level for his people. Too many of us walk up in there, walk up in a place, get in the White House, get in the places, and then we just say, well, I'm here. And we do not speak truth to power. It's just a shame. It's just a shame when you are the power. They're in power because you empowered them.
That part.
I mean, just stop it. So, I just say, hey, come on now. And I'm going to give everybody a chance to give these closing remarks. I'm going to get on out of here. But let me start with you, Wisconsin State Senator. And let us know how we can contribute to your campaign, because you run every 5 minutes and you need every dime.
You know that you are funny.
You know it's
but you're not lying.
You know it's the truth. No, that's how they structured it.
Go LenaTaylor.com.
Yeah.
And you can go to Act Blue. You can go to Act Blue and you can always find me. I am presently the state senator of the 4th Senate District in Milwaukee. So you can find me at LenaTaylor.org if you need to connect with the senator. And then the thing I want to leave you all with, I think, most important is that you have the power. And so in my, passion, what I'm trying to do is waken in the core of us, of each of us, those that understand what we're saying, and that has no color. That's just a humanity issue. And if you feel in how I speak that I'm only speaking to people who look like me, no, I'm not. I'm speaking to people who feel like me. And I'm saying that you have to find something to do to be a part of the change that we need to see in the world. I'm trying to make it as small as any bite that you can do, because if you just do a little bit, those little bits will make a difference. But if we all say that somebody else is going to do it, it's somebody else's job. Oh, it's too big for me and I don't know what to do. Then we're part of the problem. And so today, as Florida tries to rewrite history in America that has the worst, in my opinion, example of harm to humanity, because not only did they do slavery, but they encouraged something that spread across the world. And in addition to that concept, they are wanting to rewrite it today and still doing things to make it difficult for freedom and liberty and the things of America to really exist for people who look like us. So come on, do something, be found doing something different. And don't forget, you can always go to Act Blue and look up Lena Taylor and donate.
That's all I'm trying to say. Because in order to stay in the game, the way the game has been structured, she needs money. That's just real. We need to start. Either you're going to be in this or you're not going to be in it at all. Until the game is changed, until we have a publicly funded system, until you pay legislators a salary that gives them comfort. They shouldn't be paid poverty wages, which is essentially what they're paid. That's ridiculous. They should be among the best paid people in the United States, so they are unrivalable, so they are unshakable. How about that? Why don't you think about that? Because I heaven knows I don't want my doctor stumbling into stumbling in to examine me and he's broke as a biscuit or she is. Oh no, I want you to have a belly full of food that you have enjoyed. I want you to be comfortable.
Comfortable life.
Yeah.
Yeah. At peace, so your hands are set.
Yeah. I want that for the housekeepers in the hotel. I want that for the maids. I don't want them coming to work sick. And I don't want them feeling that they are feeling tempted to take my things because they have been denied so much. How, I mean, you ask too much of people. These should be great union jobs where they have great benefits, where they can send their kids to school and live in wonderful places. That's what we ought to be doing for each other as human beings. We need to create a floor beneath which no human being should fall. And that's it.
Like those UPS workers
right
who
now.
want to, and in the heat and everything, those trucks don't have air conditioning. Like those people need to be able to, they work in conditions that are challenging as we have, the weather has changed across the nation and everything is so much hotter. Those people are out there and, and don't want to have to strike, but they will break this economy.
340,000 of them. Like, oh,
they deserve.
We're going to find out August 1st if y'all don't do right by them. They will break the country. Maybe that's what y'all want. I don't know. But everybody, I mean, you are asking actors to go into a booth, get scanned, get a copy of their voice. You want to pay them $182 and then send them on their way. And then they might their grandchildren will go to a movie and see a movie that they did not act in, but because you have AI and you can recreate a person down to the microdot.
Yes.
Oh, get out of here. You need to stop it while the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. Stop, enough. Dr. Arnold, and then you, Dwight, and then we're out of here. Dr. Arnold,
Okay.
your closing thoughts.
So before I even start, I want to say thank you so much for the information you provide through your show, Santita. It is changing and creating miracles in people's lives. And we are so fortunate to have you as a civil rights icon and what you have been doing for people throughout your own life. I know there are many personal sacrifices you had to make as a child of a leader, like Reverend Jackson, like your mother, Jackie Jackson. So I applaud you for what you have gone through in your own life, but also in your own right as a civil rights leader. What I wanted to say is that we were talking yesterday. I'm going to be launching something on public health, for the African diaspora. So I'm hoping that we talk about that at some point if you had the time on your show.
I told you, just let me know when. Let me know when. Tell people what you're doing, because Lena, you need to get him on some stations up in Milwaukee too.
Oh my goodness! But please tell us what
you're doing.
With me.
Absolutely,
so that I can do that.
So what are you proposing?
Well, it's proposing having a public health. So it's an organization. So African Diaspora Public Health Professional Global. So it's going to be global in its scope, and we're doing some things with Ghana right now. And there's some candidates that are running for Ghana I'd like to talk about at some point. But it's a particular candidate I think is really situated to be able to spread the economic wherewithal. He actually corrected the system in Kosovo and in South Africa economically, and Ghana is really, and his name is Kea Praku. And so he needs to be really supported by the Ghanaian community, and to make sure that they have that, they have him in there running. He's really dynamic. But so this African diaspora public health professionals will be from across the spectrum of people who are involved in public health: doctors, nurses, epidemiologists, X-ray, whoever is in public health and is involved with it. We need to have a organized, group that is actually global in scope and really tells the truth. I'm tired of walking through things like the AMA and other organizations that are supposed to be leaders for our health. HHS and CDC are well-meaning in many of the things that they do, but it's still not our voice. We need to have our own voice globally so we can say what we can say without having any inhibitions on what we say. It's going to be based on validity, on scientific fact, not this, orchestrated crap that we went through with COVID-19 coming from a president of the United States, a sitting president who was absolutely out of his mind. He should not have been in the power to destroy people's lives. So that's the one thing. But what I want people to do is I'm going to give you a prescription. And what I want you to do is to go home and get a coffee pot and put into the coffee pot the true history of African American people. I want you to put an ingredient, social justice. I want you to put activism in there and taking action. I want you to put all those ingredients in there that are important for the movement to go forward. Then I want you to make the strongest cup you can. I want you to drink it and stay woke, because they're trying to put you to sleep.
Oh, I love this, man. That was rich.
Oh my goodness.
That was rich. That was Dwight.
You got to be riled up to raise that. And so
what did you
start
say?
with an insult.
You went out first.
You have to be riled up to raise up. And so it starts with insult. Dr. King said, whatever you do, don't let anybody ever take your manhood. And that's how we have to see this. We have to see this thing as a direct affront to our dignity and to our manhood. And we have to fight back. I'm hoping that some of us can start putting petitions into play, particularly, since the sister got that whole base with the Bernie crowd, and the doctor has that base with the doctors. And I think that once we put the seed out there, it'll grow on its own. So I just challenge everybody to do whatever they can do, but to do something. But always understand that you're fighting, not just for your life, but for the life of your children and your grandchildren.
Well, amen to that. Because it's not just about
and that
you.
That sister is Nina Turner
That's
that he's
right.
speaking about.
That's right.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mm-hmm.
That's right. That's right. I'll say this. I'll leave you all with this. I remember right before my father ran for president the first time in 1983, we met in my brother's bedroom. It was the biggest bedroom in the house. And it was that final talk before we all headed to Washington. I was already in D.C., but somehow or another, I ended up coming home a couple of weekends before. And the air was thick with excitement, crackling with it, but there was also a lot of fear because Black leaders of his ilk didn't make it past 39. He'd already made it past 39 by about 2 years, almost 3. And, 2. And the fear was that he wasn't going to make it through the campaign. And I was quite honest with him about my own fear and the fact that I just didn't want to lose my daddy. As much as I agreed with the proposition, my father's a very nurturing parent for me. And the thought of losing him was just really too much for my heart to bear. And my father sat with us and he said, and my sister was too young to really know what was going on, but it was a family meeting. So at family meetings, all 5 of us had to be there. He said, Daddy's got to run. And he's, we haven't made the official announcement, but this is what we're going to, he said, and we're going to do this. And, I tried to get Maynard Jackson to do it, Andrew Young to do it, but for various reasons, they're not going to. But the people are asking me to do this, and I'm being called to do it. And babies, this is what I've got to do. And no matter what happens, I want you to know, if anything happens to me, I need you to go on. The only way the people who call themselves our enemy, and he was careful to say that, the only way they can win is if something happens to Daddy, if you stop. So no matter what happens to me, I never want you to stop. You keep fighting and you keep going. You go to school, you become everything that our people will need you to be. He said, but I've got to run in part to take the ceiling off of your ambitions. I don't want you to grow up in an America where you feel that there are things that you cannot do. I don't want that for you. So even if it costs me my life, it will be worth it for you to know that you can go just a little bit further, a little bit farther than me. And besides, someone's got to take one for the team, and we're it. So let's go. Remember that, everybody. We've got to go forward. So whatever sacrifice you have to make it, and make it gladly. Make it with joy. Someone's got to take one for the team. Let's go. Boycott Florida. Boycott them. Let them know that you are not playing. Let them know that if they want to cross somebody, you're not the one. See, folks know who they can come after. And the power structure ought to know that they should not even think about coming after you. Don't even think about it. Think about that, everybody. And more than that, act on it. Whatever, I mean, I'm like Chris Rock. When we have an argument amongst ourselves, it should be amongst ourselves. It should not be out in these streets. We're going to take someone to task. Let's take them to task in-house. Clarence Thomas has put himself out here, so it's a little bit different for him. And plus, he is actively campaigning against Black people. And we have to call him out on it. I don't care what color you are. If you do the things that he does, I gotta call you out, and I gotta get you out the way. I don't want him to be physically hurt, but I want him removed, him and his wife. And I make no apologies about that. And stop apologizing for your own self-advocacy. You need to feel that you are enough, that you are somebody enough to be fought for. Only people who feel that they are worthless do not feel that they deserve advocacy. And many of us do not feel that we deserve advocacy. So we mistreat our advocates. We lift up the people who loathe us and we lower the people who love us. Stop it. We loved Malcolm as soon as he was shot in the Audubon ballroom. We loved Dr. King as soon as he was shot on the balcony. We loved Muhammad Ali when he was a mute. And we love Reverend Jackson for the same reasons too. But in real time, we got a problem with them. In real time, learn the lessons and start loving the people who love you. Have compassion for those who don't and keep on going. Onward and upward. Let's go. I love you, everybody. I love you, Dr. Arnold. I love you, my sister, State Senator Lena Taylor. I love you, Dwight McKeith. I love you, Paul. Thank you all for everything. If anyone wants to add anything, let's do it before I turn everything off.
One thing I
Have
want
a
to
great
add.
day.
Well, thank you for joining, Lena, because I knew I was grabbing folks. I was just grabbing y'all, and I'm glad I did. The Lord put this panel together, so thank you. I love you.
But one thing I want to say,
yes,
you took me back in time with your comment about when Reverend Jackson ran. He was the first person I've ever voted for as president. For president.
Me too.
And I remember, having a nickel to my name, and that had to go towards the book because I couldn't, afford to eat that day, right? And it was really a terrible time, going through, because I came from a, single parent household, and so it was difficult going through some things. But I knew that the education was extremely important. But when your father announced that he was going to run for president, he may not have heard it, but a scream went up from Howard University, and all of us were deeply affected, all of us. And we were like, wow.
Oh, yeah.
And we're in the Capitol, and you have someone who is strong enough in our collective community to step up and say, I'm going to run for president. This is not your country. It was astounding. It was life transforming for all of us. So I just wanted to, highlight that one point.
No, it's because he did it in the midst of the Reagan Revolution. This was the super white man. And Reverend was about the only one with the courage who said, I don't think so. Your policies are wrong.
Yeah.
I'm going to call you out on it, and I'm going to run against you. I got to get to these Democrats first, because y'all are playing with him. Y'all are playing. But don't play with me, and don't play with my people, and don't play, and not just black people. My people are these white farmers. Dwight, you were there last week. A big chunk of the reunion, these were white farmers who 40 years ago got a sense of somebodyness from this black man from Greenville, South Carolina. Skin ain't kin.
Right. That's it.
And sometimes when you just have skin in the game, that makes you kin enough. They heard the whispers out in their areas, and they decided they were going to be security for Reverend Jackson. They would call the FBI. They would call Secret Service. They would say, you're not going to hurt him. Even Jerry Falwell called Reverend and said, look, I hear the chitter chatter out here. I don't agree with your politics, but you are my brother in Christ. And I promise you, Jesse, I will not let anything happen to you if it is within my power. Come on, y'all. Let's grow up. Let's grow up. And let's make America what it's supposed to be. Let's make the world what it's supposed to be. How about that? Aren't you tired of being God, my pastor, our pastor, Reverend Clay Evans, Dwight McKee said, I've never seen God make a mouth he couldn't feed. If you're hungry today, that means some greedy person is taking some food out your mouth and taking some food off your table. You ought to be tired of it. Never seen God make a mouth he couldn't feed, ever.
And to your point, Peter, too, one of the things we talked about a little bit was this issue about, how these legislators, the Supreme Court, is perceived by Clarence Thomas. And one of the things that we have to be very careful about, and it goes back to what you were saying about, how we perceive Malcolm, Reverend Jackson, Martin Luther King, all those people, how we perceived them while they were doing what they were doing. And then for those who were killed, how we slowly rallied around them after the fact. And one of the things that we have to be very careful about, and this is what we saw when President Obama was making some decisions which were questionable, concerning Jeremiah Wright and the other, people. But when Tavis Smiley stood forward, when Cornel West came forward, these are civil rights advocates, and they were becoming demonized in the media, which they would love to do. So we have to be very careful about what people are saying and trying to miseducate us and disinformation and misinformation in the media about our leaders and people who are standing up. And there were several people who were coming forward, speaking up about what we needed to do. Many of the icons in the legislature who are women were coming forward, our sisters, and many of the brothers were coming forward. And we should not be demonizing those people who are working on our behalf. We become complicit in oppression.
And do not allow other people to let that happen, because President Obama never should have opened up that lane on Reverend Wright and these other Black leaders. He should have shut it down or allowed other people to do it. It was wrong. And I can love him, and he's my friend, and he is my friend.
Yes.
But how can you call yourself a friend if you don't call people out?
Yeah.
The Reverend Wright you see today is a man who has a broken heart. And that was wrong. And they were trying to stamp out the Black prophetic tradition, and that is a sin and a shame. The Black prophetic tradition is what got him there and is what will save him. I can't save you for what happened with Gaddafi and everything else. But the path that was paved for you was paved by Black prophets.
Right.
No, and you must call people out when they're wrong.
Yeah.
And don't call me and say that I don't love. Get out of here. When he had a hole in his shoe, we were giving him a ride and we were giving him a platform and push. Barack Obama. So please don't give me that. So no. And so I'm gonna call you out. When no one knew
and that's
his
the thing.
name, Jeremiah Wright picked him up and made him somebody at Trinity. That was a big deal.
Yes.
Don't play with me. A lot of people loved him and helped
Powerful.
him. Yeah. Opening up that lane
Yeah.
on Jeremiah Wright was wrong. It was wrong.
Yeah.
It was wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And we should never betray our own people.
Never.
Never.
So that's it. Oh, so you said, oh, Robert, there's a trial date, I guess, for Trump, May of 2024. Oh, that'll be rich. Oh, you better get ready for an inauguration of Donald Trump because you have enlarged this joker. Okay. So,
Yes.
so just keep it up here because all of these indictments and investigations are political in nature. Trust and believe. They are all political.
Yes.
Anytime some of the biggest war criminals in the history of the world are still allowed to live in the United States and breathe freely and move around, maybe not around the world, but they can move around here and they're honored here. So, come on, just stop. Let's grow up in our politics. I'm done with that. So I love you. I love y'all. Dwight, I heard you grunt, Dwight. Kind of. Is there anything else you want to say, Dwight? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's it. It's all right. It's all right. It's all right.
All of you today.
I love you all. You all have been so much. It's been wonderful. So I'm gonna get on out of here. We have been here for a full 3 hours and some change. So I love you, but thank you. And Dr. Arnold, Monday, Tuesday, affirmative action, and the global diasporic medical. We got to do that. But in the meantime, we have to connect you to the governor of KwaZulu Natal. They have 200 doctors who are unfunded there. But they cannot be paid salary, so they're stuck at home. We got to find something. We got to find a way to help them. They have no money. They are stuck at home. They can't do anything.
Oh boy, is there any way you can send me some information on that?
Absolutely, I'll reach out to her today. Yeah, and I will connect you to her. Yeah, it's 200 of them. They're just sitting there. They're sitting in KwaZulu Natal. 200. They cannot even afford to get on the bus. They're unemployed. Highly skilled, highly trained, unemployed.
Wow.
You can't make this stuff up. Okay. All right. So I'm going to reach out to her people because she came for the convention and she flew back. I have to find out. I'll call and find out where she is. See if she's back in South Africa, and then I'll connect you to them. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I will connect you to them today. I will do that right away.
Okay.
Okay.
Perfect.
All right, because that's like issue number one. Because they have cholera. I mean, they have a lot of things that are raging there, and you have people who could treat them, but they're not paid. They're unemployed. Oh my gosh, that's crazy. Okay, but I love you all. I'm out of here. Boom. So thank you, everybody. Like and forward the show. Like and share. Like and share. Like and share. I love you. I love you. I love you. I'm out of here. Bye-bye.